Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, the judiciary is an institution we respect. We know that the judiciary of Kenya has remained independent. We want to tell Madam President of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, don't gang up with those goons and crooks and conmen. We want you to get out of that committee because we want a country that has a very independent and working judiciary.
Now, police in Kisumu have released 18 people who were rounded up Monday following the foiled robbery attempt on Equity Bank's Angawa Street branch. They included Equity Bank staffers and customers. Out of the 18 people, 14 of them were bank staffers and a cleaner. 4 of them were customers, including a university lecturer. Kisumu County Criminal Investigation Officer Francis Wanjiru said they've all recorded statements and will be required to report at the station whenever required. Wanjiru said they are retaining their phones for further investigations. So far, nobody has been arrested. On the banking hall CCTV cameras, one of the suspects is seen talking to a cashier where he hands over an envelope which had a note directing her to insert 1,000 notes only. A note was also handed saying there are 4 robbers in the bank and are armed with guns, grenades and knives. The same suspect is seen throwing a tear gas canister and removing a cap and shirt before leaving. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Okay, so we are on Thursday morning. It has been a good week so far, isn't it? Well, let's check and see what the roads are looking like this morning. Coming off a southern bypass, not too much of an issue at all. Clear and free. Find your way into the city centre without too much of a problem whatsoever. Keeping an eye on other parts of the city today. Traffic hasn't really started. We're not seeing too much of an issue here at all. Coming off of Mombasa Road and then going into the city. Thika Superhighway is already starting to build up and it looks like we're going to start Thursday in fine form. So not much traffic on our roads today, but we're going to keep an eye on things and see how this progresses through the morning. If you've left, you're in good stead. If you haven't, maybe a few more minutes before things get a little bit crazy. Now would be a good time to do so. In about 10 minutes or so, things might change. We'll be here to let you know what it looks like. We need your help on this as well. Talk to us on SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text on 40127. Let's get Thursday started off right.
Are you ready? Okay.
SpiceFM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Is well. Checking in on this Thursday, the 25th of November, 2021, 8 minutes past 6 o'clock. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the studio this morning, C.T. Muga, good morning.
Ndu Okoh, good morning.
Voila. How are you?
Super.
Oh, even? Okay. That's great.
Good.
It's good. Wanjiru, Gikonyo, good morning.
Good morning, Do.
How are you?
I'm very well.
That's good. You know what? The Spice studio is actually matching the sky. The sunrise today is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but it looks really good. Oranges and reds and yellows. It's really nice to see. Sunrise. Did I say sunset?
You said sunrise.
Yes.
This morning. You actually got everything correct. You sequenced it nicely.
Thank you.
Sunrise, morning. Then the kaleidoscope came in.
Yes.
Colors, ba-bam, ba-boom,
Yes.
ba-bam. Okay.
Painted the picture for you,
Yes. Then colors in the studio. Tutu, got it.
Hey, I noticed the sun coming up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We're moving to the point where it's overhead.
Yep.
Can't remember. Solstice.
Why are you asking me
Summer
things
solstice
that
is what it is.
I was taught when I was in Form 1? Do you know how long ago Form 1 is for me?
You know, I associate academia with you. So when I need to verify something, especially if it's something I learned in school, I look at you.
Professor.
Professore. Kwani you're gaining new information and deleting the
No,
old.
it's not
Kwani
deleting.
kunaendaje?
It's not deleting. What happens is you may have the knowledge somewhere, but it isn't current in your mind. It's not what you use on a daily basis. So what you're asking me to do is to go to the archives.
Let's visit the archives and remember that term. I think it was a solstice.
It was. So essentially what happens is that the days are longer and the nights are shorter at this time of the year.
It's called who again?
Summer solstice.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and you?
Very good, Sam.
Voila.
Yes.
Okay.
See? People whose memories are clear.
Yes, as I was driving in, I was like, I must be really late. You know, it's
The
too
sun is
bright.
up.
Then I remembered,
It's the time of the year.
December beckons. Karibu tu.
Yeah, people are putting up Christmas lights and decorations.
December isn't beckoning. December is already here. Yes, in fact, 2022 is here.
In fact, the election is tomorrow.
Because December is an extremely short month. It begins, and just when you are sort of like setting yourself up to enjoy it, you're in January.
Indeed. And then January lasts for 365
You're
days.
such a joy killer.
No,
you know, for
and-
me, December is beckoning, and I'm trying to think about slowing down the pace, and that's all I have.
You know,
Easy big meals.
okay.
Visits.
So
That is all I have.
So that on Monday you can hit the treadmill again.
Killjoy. Kwani leo umeamkaje? And the way you're looking bright. How do you think about Christmas and think about the weight you'll gain? That is tufanye therapy.
Actually, I don't think along those lines. It's odd. This is the thing about individual minds. I would rather... Things which are enjoyable and joyful will come and pass. So them I don't bother about. I'd rather focus my mind on the things that I don't find particularly joyful. Okay, like January. Okay, which is actually 3 months rolled into one. Okay, it is a long month.
It really is.
Aishi. So you're building what we were told about yesterday. You're building resilience.
Yes.
Oh, it's good to see that these lessons were learned.
They were learned.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. A lot of things lined up for us to talk about today. Looking at several things today. We'll have a conversation. It is Justice Thursday as well. We're talking to the Judiciary and seeing where we are with matters justice, as well as citizenship and the rights of the citizen. A lot of these conversations been taking place in the periphery, so we'll be having a look at those today. We don't take it for granted that you're with us this morning in the Situation Room, and we say Asante Sana and Karibuni. As we get out into things today, let's take a look at what's happening with COVID-19 in the country. Let's take a look around the world first of all, guys. These numbers, we seem to have been stuck at 259 million COVID cases around the world, so it could be a good thing. But these numbers will jump. Whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want to come to that reality, we will see an increase in these numbers. 259,699,497 COVID cases realized so far in the world. The European case is what is front and center now. And Europe faces 700,000 more COVID deaths. And this is a warning that has come from the World Health Organization just yesterday. And they're looking at the possibility of these deaths in the next 3.5 months. The death toll already exceeds 1.5 million in 53 countries of what the World Health Organization terms as its Europe region. The WHO warned of a high or extreme stress in intensive care units in 49 of these countries by March 2022. Meaning that they will admit more people and they will admit more people with an intense infection of COVID. And they're not sure how they will be able to deal with this. Europe is facing a surge in cases, prompting Austria to return to its lockdown and either to consider fresh measures. A number of countries, including France, Germany, and Greece, could also soon make booster jabs a requirement for their citizens to be considered fully vaccinated. So it's an issue that we are looking at here. It's not fun. It's not an interesting thing to talk about. Let's look really quickly at what's happening in the country right now with COVID-19 cases. We still have a low positivity rate, which is a good thing. Trying to keep those numbers as low as possible. Yesterday, 35 new cases out of a sample size of 4,246. 2 recorded deaths gives us a positivity rate of 0.8%, which is what we're gunning for. And definitely is a good thing. Where are we with vaccinations? We have some additional vaccines that arrived in the country, now putting that at 11,611,890. Those are the vaccines that have come into the country so far. Of those, 6.5 million have been administered. Still 9.9% of the population has been vaccinated. That's where we are with COVID. All right, come back in a bit, say hello to you, and we'll take a look at what's going on in the news.
Bro, na si watu wamejenga manyumba area. Kwanza angalia ile. Are you seeing that roof, that color? Sio ni nyumba mpya?
That's not a new house, bro. That's a Covermax roof.
Covermax?
Covermax. It's more than just a roof. It's color that lasts. Ukiweka, umeweka.
So whose new house is that anyway? Really nice.
Ni yangu.
How's that possible?
Good choice from me. Covermax didn't let me down. It's good to have a long-lasting roof when you have a family, you know? Covermax roofing sheets with advanced color coating technology. A quality product from Mabati Rolling Mills.
This is something people need to understand. Your money, my money, equals our money. We cannot have your money is our money and my money is my money.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
The weather
19 degrees
with
and clear
Spice
conditions
FM.
in Nairobi, highs of 27 and lows of 17 today. Mostly clear in Nakuru at 14, highs of 28. We'll see highs of 26 in Nyeri, where it's clear at 12, and that will be the low for today. Eldoret, mostly cloudy conditions at 13, highs of 25 and lows of 12. Into Mombasa, it's raining lightly at 27, highs of 33 and lows of 26. We're also seeing light rain in Malindi at 28 currently, highs of 32 and lows of 27. It's clear in Kisumu at 19, highs of 30 and lows of 19. And we look into Kakamega, where it's also clear at 18, highs of 30 and lows of 16. Kampala is mostly clear this morning at 19, highs of 30. And in Dar es Salaam, partly sunny conditions at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Johannesburg is cloudy at 13, highs of 18 and lows of 11. And we're looking at cloudy conditions at 26 in Lagos, highs of 33 and lows of 25. Light rain in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 23. It's early afternoon in Beijing and it's 9 degrees and sunny, highs of 10 and lows of -2 today. And in Paris, cloudy conditions at 5, highs of 6 and lows of 2. New York is clear at 7, highs of 7 and lows of 3. And cloudy conditions in London at 6, highs of 7, back down to lows of 6.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
in Nairobi at 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5. If you're in Kisumu this morning, we know that our Nyeri frequency of 90.9 having an issue at the moment, but that's been worked on. Nevertheless, you can live stream online, SpiceFM, KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. And just before we get into what's happening with the news, let's say hello to you really quickly. Who is online this morning? George Okoh. What's the frequency for SpiceFM in Nairobi? 94.4 is what you're looking for, George. Langi Ziegler says, hi, Ndusitian Wanjiru, already streaming in from Miami, Florida. You missed the Kenyan weather. It is the summer right now. Robert Mbogo says, good morning, tuned in from Kwale. Nicholas Udida, Kitale locked in this morning. Daktari Yusuf tuned in already from Nairobi. Good morning, my people. Good morning, our person. Godfrey Kim Chumba tuned in from Nandi. And Kaka Elijah Momanyi tuned in this morning as well. Beta Ashley, we see you. Machakos is tuned in this morning. Stanley says, good morning, everyone. It's sad some governors are running their last lap despite their development track record. Indeed, Devolution Conference, the 7th one, currently ongoing in Makwene County. And a lot of news coming out of there. And we'll look into that as we go along. Before we do that, though, CT, today's proverb.
Asiyejua utu si mtu.
Asiyejua.
Asiyejua utu si mtu. Somebody does not know how to be humane, cannot be human.
It's true.
As Mwalimu Nyerere said of Kenyans, ...
He said ...
No.
She's being polite as in filling the blanks.
Because he said that Kenya is a dog-eat-dog society. That means we lack utu. Whereas Tanzanians, utu is at the center of that socialist revolution led by Mwalimu Nyerere, and it endures until today. Even the ways they engage as Tanzanians. Na kuomba maji, naomba. You know, when you're talking to somebody, you don't say like the way Kenyans say, nipatie.
Kenyans beings, where? I say.
Si ufanye hivyo.
Where? Si ufanye.
Si. Yani. So utu, in fact, Uraia are running a campaign on utu, trying to reintroduce utu. Because they've looked, they are doing civic education.
They can't find it.
They are saying this civic education tunafika kila mahali, but this culture of Kenyans
and you see in Tanzania, everybody is ndugu. Now, mheshimiwa is actually the mwananchi. Mwananchi mheshimiwa. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
It's a big mind shift.
Oh, are
you saying they don't kowtow the way Kenyans kowtow for leaders?
Ndugu mheshimiwa. Mheshimiwa is actually you. It's understood that it is you who elects this person.
So you are the one
anayestahili kuheshimiwa ni wewe.
That is it. Yes. That is where we need a revolution to change our
I think we got the revolution. It's just that it's something that we find a little unpalatable. Yes, because like I'm always amused when there's a traffic jam and the matatu touts now become traffic policemen. This is, yes. It took, these days I've been in jams often enough, so now I know. Where, Mzae, Ebu? So, as far as I'm concerned, they're talking to somebody else. Then the guy knocks on the window. Mzae, Su Songe.
So, utu mtu si?
Asiye jua utu si mtu. And the person, by the way, is not being rude. No, like, not at all.
Let's understand one another.
Yes. He's actually referring to you respectfully. It's now you to understand the terms of engagement.
Indeed. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on in our papers today. What many could term a big story. I'll start off with that. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, now says Ruto was involved in a scheme to interfere with witnesses. The subline, anti-ICC sentiment was fierce in the Rift Valley, and persons cooperating with the court, particularly suspecting witnesses, were regarded as traitors, according to the prosecutors. The Paul Gicheru trial in The Hague has now taken a twist, with the prosecution forwarding evidence that implicates Deputy President William Ruto in the witness corruption program that sabotaged the case against him and radio journalist Joshua Arap Sang. The latest brief, signed by Deputy Prosecutor James Stewart and submitted on November 22nd, says the evidence establishes that the pattern of witness interference was conducted for the benefit of and in coordination with William Samoei Ruto. It is the first time the DP is directly named as the coordinator of the plan that corrupted his case. Previously, Dr. Ruto's name was redacted, and unlike the other cooperators, Mr. Gicheru, Mr. Walter Boraza, and Mr. Philip Bett, the prosecution has never indicted him. The naming of Dr. Ruto will put him in an awkward place as he campaigns to be Kenya's president. The information will open a new battle between him and the International Criminal Court if it proves its case. Dr. Ruto also risks being charged with corruptly influencing a witness under Article 70, which could earn him 5 years for every count and payment of reparations to the victims of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. In the recent ICC jurisprudence, such a case does not require the prosecutor to prove actual effect on the witnesses or the witness, for it is categorized as a conduct crime, which is broadly interpreted to include actual bribery, pressuring, intimidation, and threatening witnesses. So, with the Paul Gicheru case, this is why in the beginning, when the case then was recalled, and with all this hullabaloo about how he went to The Hague for treatment, plus and the other thing, that it would come out. If there was a connection, it would come out. And at the beginning of the case, boom, here it is, that he has been named. So we saw the redaction of a name previously. And so now in these proceedings, that redaction does not exist. Names are clear. And it now then, if they're able to prove their case, it could mean several other things. So now the questions are popping up. What happens if you are named in such a way before this court? What could happen? Witness tampering, pressuring, intimidation. What happens there?
Why now?
Why now?
How did this case resurface? Because that's what I was asking.
This case resurfaced when
Paul Gicheru presented himself at The Hague. Yes. So his case has begun, and it was almost inevitable that this was because by the time the case was then brought again before the bench, it was clear that there was certain evidence that they had that they were then going to present at the onset of this case. And here we are. I think we're on day 3 now, and it has come out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Instrumentalization of this instrumentalization of the war against corruption. If you're on the wrong side of politics, woe unto you. And in this case, a witness whose own conduct is very questionable based on his own track record now presents himself and reveals facts that had previously been withheld. Yeah. And actually, he's telling the story Bensouda told, because Bensouda came and said, we cannot continue with this case because witnesses have died, recanted and changed their statements, and so we can't continue.
And
so
the government of Kenya was not forthcoming with their assistance. In fact, the government of Kenya were a bulwark. They were the ones who just kept at every turn. Every turn. They didn't actually cooperate. They did the Kenyan thing, spoke about cooperation, but didn't. That effort was constantly frustrated. Now, fine gentleman goes to the court. One could even argue he self-confessed to bribing witnesses.
Essentially.
Yes. So now, joining the dots in this one is not difficult. Again, my question, why now?
And who is providing pressure? Who is providing information? You can't run away from asking those questions right now. Is there a push in a certain direction to say, step up the pressure because this gentleman is a contender for the top seat in the country at this time? Some people say I don't believe in circumstance or coincidence.
No. In this particular, in politics, please do not even bring the word coincidence into it. No. if you consider the way our politics gets very dirty, okay, you present yourself as a candidate. God, the things that will be said about you. You see, even if it's false, it's been said. And there'll be no shortage of individuals who will believe what has been said. It's like you misquoted. You know, it's been read, you can come and correct it. That one people hardly ever pay attention to.
And it's a distraction.
Yes, it is.
Because you then now have to pay attention, put resources. It's the level of the stakes around the presidency
that are extremely high. Indeed.
Two things used to happen in my neck of the woods. It doesn't really hold traction now, but it once did. In those early days of Ford, if somebody was on the campaign trail and was successful, all you required was somebody to come and say, that's Kanu money. Done.
Done. Finished.
Or somebody comes and says, you know, this person isn't really from here.
He's not our person.
No, his mother came with him. You know, you're already in trouble.
Persona non grata immediately.
Yes. Then why is he vying for a seat in this place and doesn't come from here?
Crazy stuff.
The falsehood that make for the political landscape in this country.
Crazy. It's 6:30 on the nose. Let's take a quick break and take a look at the weather and traffic, and then we'll come back and continue taking a look at what's making news in the papers.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
There are thousands of jobs in construction and real estate waiting just for you. Listen to Double O Direct from 10 a.m. this Saturday on 94.4 SpiceFM. Streaming live on standardmedia.co.ke. Jobs in construction and real estate. A special Double O Direct with me, Olivia Otieno. Brought to you by Mabati Rolling Mills. MRM, 60 years of quality building solutions. Ukiweka.
Okay, building up very slowly in different parts of the city this morning. Joggo Road seems to be taking the hardest hit this morning, trying to get out towards the City Stadium roundabout and then onto Landis Road. Landis Road doesn't look bad at all. In and out in 60 seconds. Well, okay, don't do that. But, you know, in a very short period of time. It's building up on Langata Road as well as you get towards the roundabout, then going towards Bagathiwe at Timor. That's not a problem here at all. Coming out of Westlands, again, is such a pretty sight. It's matching the sunrise today. There's no traffic, at least not for now. Vehicles are moving and we're not seeing any red at all. Hopefully we can maintain this for at least, you know, the next half an hour so that people can get where they're going without too much of a headache. But we're going to keep an eye on things. And just in case it gets sticky, you can use the Red Hill Link Road getting out of Westlands and all that mess that would be on Waiakiwe. All right. So what else are we looking at? That Pangani stretch coming off of Thika Superhighway is what's building up right now. Don't expect too much traffic right now around 6:30, but likely to get crazier as we inch closer to 7 o'clock. Thika Superhighway free and clear. Coming off North Airport Road looks pretty good as well. And then we're looking at the Eastern Bypass. Not an inch of traffic. This is good times on the roads. Will the good times last? That's the question. If they don't, get in touch. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
Mornings
FM.
done right indeed, and we are continuing with taking a look at what's going on in the news by way of the papers. What do you have? City?
I'm looking at page 9 of the Star. My friend, it has many, many issues. On the one hand, at the top, DCI Kinoti in fresh bid to set aside 4 months sentence. Okay. 1. Below that, state witness takes stand in Kemorera and Aror case. Charity Muya first to testify in multi-billion shilling dam scandal. Then, police marksman on the run after killing colleague in Laikipia. This is the story that has caught my attention. And I'm going to say why.
Okay.
Laikipia, for the past few months, has actually been in the news for all the wrong reasons. A lot of mayhem, a lot of chaos, stories about bandits. It's one chaotic story after another. But Marsabit, where the problems are even more, somehow isn't in the papers. I'm informed that even contingents of GSUs had to be sent to Marsabit town. Businessmen were being shot in broad daylight. That region has become chaotic. But this story, a policeman is on the run after he allegedly shot and killed his colleague at a camp in the troubled Laikipia County. Constable Robert Langore is missing with the G3 rifle that was loaded with 20 bullets. He allegedly shot and killed his colleague John Siro during an argument on Tuesday. Siro was shot in the back in their sentry. Langore fled the scene while shooting at colleagues who tried to pursue him after the incident. Let me explain why it is I've chosen this story. On many occasions, we have talked about mental health issues, okay? And we have also highlighted the number of times we've reported people who are in the security arm of our government. Somebody shoots colleagues, then shoots themselves. Somebody shoots wife. It's the litany. It's a long list of things. Now, when you hear this has happened in Laikipia, I can't help but ask, when people are taken to these areas where conflict is rife, what do we do to ensure that they're able to debrief? What psychosocial support do they get
thereafter?
Because no human being, no matter how well trained, is able to absorb that amount of trauma on a daily basis without it having the ripple effect that we sometimes see.
Is it that because those who would be in a position to do this have probably been in similar situations themselves, so they understand the repercussions of having to come out of such a traumatic experience.
Yes.
So then begs the question, why then is it not dealt with? Is it not a matter of priority? Is it that there are other things that are taking up time and resources? Why then not pay attention to that? Because the number of people who suffer PTSD is actually very high.
Oh, it's higher than we know.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that we've dealt with. So even when you talk about the figures, there'll be a hodgepodge of information. But when we've talked to senior personnel in the police force, police service, we've been told about plans that have been set in place for psychosocial support in key places. Now, unfortunately, this isn't a service that people volunteer for. It has to be. Just like you have a department that issues firearms, there has to be a department that deals specifically with these issues. So someone knows, when I've been in this operational area for this long, I am required to actually go to that place before I can come back to duty. But we seem to we take you from this hotspot to another hotspot to another hotspot. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, in fact, I think I recall in the papers some 6 to 8 weeks ago that Parliament passed a bill supporting forensic services to allow investment to aid police investigations. I also remember IMLU advocating for increased budgetary allocations to the police service. Now, this comes at a time when the actual budget allocation to defense and policing has gone up. But where is that money going? It's going into hardware instead of going into the softer issues that make policing community-based and sustainable.
But even that hardware, I have to raise the question, is it really? You see,
is it really?
No, is it really? Yes, the money is expended, it is spent.
Yeah.
We are a country that can pay for a dam that was never built. Okay? We are a country that have a situation where we are now being fined for reneging on a contract for a dam that was supposed to be built that was never built.
But still got to pay for it, plus charges.
Just look at the ridiculous scenario that is presented. So
around infrastructure.
So when someone tells you money was
Hardware.
allocated for hardware,
Where is
really?
it? Where is it?
Or bullets,
Yeah.
the munitions factory.
Which somehow find their way out of the armory anyway.
Right, and that doesn't then meet the local needs. So you invest with a rationale that we are going to reduce the cost of importing bullets.
Yes.
Then you invest, and when I think was it a parliamentary committee that reviewed and found that it's so run down. So they were asking, so where did the money go? And we are still importing.
And we've still
munitions.
put up another factory in Ruiru.
Yeah.
You see, these projects are excellent projects. They are wonderful
Needed.
projects.
If they were working as they were originally meant to.
Yes, but you see, they interfere with the procurement process that Kenyans love. Because if it's local, we know where it is. We know what it costs. You want to import it. Because when you import it, then it gives you room for playing hop, step, and jump.
Indeed.
Yes.
Now, this is something very interesting that something else going on, right? On the front page of the Standard. Why Ruto wants CJ, his name has popped up again this morning. Why Ruto wants CJ Kome out of the 2022 polls team. It's a conflict of interest claim. And these are words from him. You can't be a judge of an electoral process you are overseeing, Deputy President Allies tells CJ, who sits in a multi-sectoral elections preparedness team as details of additional 19 billion shilling budget are revealed. All right, so of course it is Allies who are speaking, so we say it is him, yes? Kenyans will have to dig deeper into their pockets to raise a further 19.3 billion shillings to finance what is shaping up to be a very expensive general election. The Standard can now reveal that a multi-agency team of the Ministry of Interior, Judiciary, the Electoral Commission, and other government ministries and agencies involved with next year's polls is seeking 24 billion shillings for next year's election exercise. One of the agencies that will see its budget increase significantly is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that's the IEBC, which says it has a deficit of 7 billion shillings that would hamper its efforts to conduct a successful exercise. The IEBC had sought a budget of 40 billion, but the National Treasury allocated 26.3 billion in the current financial year, which was ratified by Parliament. That left a deficit of 14.6 billion. So the 19.3 billion will be in addition to allocations the multi-agency team received during the financial year 2021-2022. The judiciary has been allocated 17.9 billion. Now the courts say it will need another 5.5 billion for the election. So, the Consultative Forum has proposed adjustments to next year's election budget to adequately fund activities it says will ensure no hitches. Chief Justice Martha Koome, the chairperson of the team, said the additional money will ensure the elections will be credible. Should I start again?
No, we got it.
Okay, credible, free and fair. Some of the cash will go towards providing meals for police officers. Improving the judiciary's informative technology infrastructure and recruiting more staff for roles that will arise during the process. Tuesday, CJ Kome was in a meeting on election preparedness at the Kenya School of Government in Kabete, and it adopted the engagement framework for the election that is expected to enhance, etc., etc., etc. But now, looking at all of this, which are good things, right? It's being formed, framework is being set up. We need a little bit more money, apply it here, there, do the other thing.
Makes sense.
In comes UDA and says, hold on a minute. The role that the CJ is playing in the polls preparation is a problem. So they've written to the CJ and said, please disengage from election preparation committee. You should not be there. She chaired the committee alongside Matiang'i, Musheru and the AG. And they've said that they've asked her to quit a committee tasked with overseeing election preparations. She sits on this committee, and they're saying in this letter, and I quote, henceforth, stop, abandon, there are many things, stop, abandon, desist, refrain, and cease participating in the activities of the committee because it's a conflict of interest. The committee draws its membership from various government agencies and indeed a multi-sectoral forum. We opine that your involvement in the consultative meeting is a clear violation of the Constitution, the Judicial Service Act, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Public Officer Ethics Act, the Bangalore Principles, and the Code of Conduct for Judicial Officers. It's going against all of these things, and based on that, please remove yourself.
From where I sit, number one, this article picks the conflict, as the big headline, but then also goes on to give the facts that it's about election preparedness, about putting enough money, judiciary is preparing for petitions and all of that. So number one, I'm like, okay, it's a bit sensationalist of the newspaper, but all right, the story is a good one. On UDA's point, this is an administrative committee. So my view is they have a right to raise their issue. They might need to argue it in front of the courts. And if they do so...
If it gets to that stage.
Depending. To my mind, the question is, should the CJ be... Should the judiciary be involved in an administrative process for preparation of elections, or is it the CJ's office itself? And I think that's a question. These questions are raised as we continue to interpret the Constitution and the law. So it's fair, raise the question. Let us look at precedents. Let us look at the mandates. So I would look at this and say, let's learn.
It's true. As CT would say, some of these things, this robust debate then allows you to learn, right? Things that you never knew before. That is it possible that the CJ sits on such a committee? Is it against the law? Is it against any other laws that have been brought in before? So such things are good because then everybody else is privy to this information and you get to know, should it happen or not? So it's not necessarily wrong that they're bringing up this issue.
No. If these issues weren't brought up, for instance, the BBI would just have sailed through. Okay, warts and all. And the issue here was not the BBI, it was process. Said, folks, what you're saying is good. We even think it is good. But we have this thing called the Constitution. And we have these laws. Really, you can't say we're going to break the law so that we can bring about good. How does that work out?
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yes.
Essentially.
And as we have Justice Kamau coming in at 8 o'clock, I think this is a good question to raise with her. In our engagement, we also, because we do a lot of public interest litigation, and we have had engagements with the judiciary outside of the court process. And you always wonder, what's this line? Because the judiciary is a bit special in that regard. They have a mandate and you don't want to get into a court case and then find that there's conflict of interest. So let's
see.
Let's see.
It's 13 minutes to 7. More news making the headlines. We'll take a look at that after this break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up 24/7 around the world non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
What makes a man?
I had an advertising job that was toxic. It was difficult. I'm not saying the people were toxic. I don't think anyone is inherently toxic.
Don't ever let someone's perception of you become your reality.
How do we navigate through career, family, and life?
I was an average kid. I wasn't a poor student.
Examining what defines a man.
We derive our identity as men based on external factors, on things that people can be able to see.
A space for men to open their experiences and more. Starting Thursday, 18th November on the Standard Digital YouTube and Facebook page. Hosted by Eric Latiff.
The 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an international annual campaign that brings together individuals and organizations with the aim of eliminating gender-based violence and, in particular, violence against women and girls. Join me, Olivia Otieno, this Saturday from 10 a.m. on SpiceFM as we discuss violence and harassment in the workplace. It's a special 00 Direct this Saturday from 10 a.m. only on SpiceFM.
Want to play in the League of Pros? BTV and Zlatan Gaming Lounge presents the B-Team Takeover. PS5 FIFA 2022 tournament. 4th December at Zlatan Gaming Lounge Elite Plaza, Rongai. Show off your skills. 64 players, 6 rounds, 3 winners. Cash prizes and a staycation up for grabs. Registration fee 1,000 shillings. Payable by paybill 22211 account Z Gaming. For more information, contact 0719-012-546 or DM the BTV social media handles. Rise up to the challenge.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Afande umbo yako iko na
Nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
At 10 minutes to 7 o'clock, still taking a look at the news making headlines this morning. What do you already have?
I'm looking at devolution, but this time looking at the counties. A story that caught my attention is that City Hall is in a tight spot over the fixed asset register. This is a long... Yes, City are about to break out into laughter. This is a long-standing issue. So City Hall has until February next year to come up with a digitized register of all fixed county assets. The directive follows a report by the National County Assembly Public Accounts Committee, which considered the Auditor General report of the financial year 2017-2018. So the Wilfred Odalo team fingered the Anne Kananu-led administration for deliberately failing to maintain a complete, comprehensive register of its fixed assets since transitioning from city council status. So this caught my attention because, number one, this is a long-standing issue that predates Governor Kananu. And then also it's called what? Ingenuity of Odalo to blame the recent governor for this lack. I mean, the county assembly is also equally complicit. But then from Kenyans' point of view, it's the fact that this assets register hasn't been completed in Nairobi. And a lot of money has been put in.
Wanjiru, what is an assets register?
The assets register is supposed to be the log of all deeds or public land in the county. And there have been several processes. Now, land was lost during the transition from local government to county government. Why? Because the county doesn't know what it owns. In fact, the county raises revenue without knowing what the database of its assets are.
So essentially, they can't actually even project and figure what it is that they're supposed to actually raise.
We are doing budgets without facts. It's actually juju. It's political juju that Nairobi County has perfected. You can't make this stuff up, man.
Wow.
You do not know your database. Or rather, there are people who know. But it is not in the public domain. The other thing is money has continued to be pumped. There are projects that come up. I think the Swedes had invested money before the transition, big thing to digitize land. To digitize, you first unahesabu, which is our land. Then there was a transfer process, a committee set up, I think, in 2014. All blank shots, as you say. Blank shots. Haziendi popote.
Like,
the intention is there. Delivery haiko.
Because the choice just not to.
Because land is the single defining issue for two things. One, for the survival and success of county governments. And two, for the ability to raise revenue for the county or for individuals. And right now, the cartels run the day.
Cartels still
But
run.
even if we talk about county land, okay, at the end of the day, the owner of the land is actually the national government, is it not?
No. The land is actually, there are different categories of land, and public land assets are vested in the county. There are some categories of land that are managed by the national government. I'd need to brush up. Ni vile archive
Let me explain to you why
whatever.
I'm saying this.
But
yes.
counties own the public land.
Yes.
Right.
On whose behalf do they own the land?
On behalf of the public.
Okay. National government, on whose behalf do they own land? Let me explain what I'm saying. If I look at, say, a public space like Uhuru Garden, okay? Public, national government.
Yes.
Who says it's national government?
This way I'm going with this. Is it owned by the national government? Is it owned by the county government? No. I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm raising this issue because one of the things that you've actually brought up, you mentioned it in passing, but it's not salient. It is actually a fundamental point when it comes to revenue collection. All counties literally talk about revenue collection and targets. And this one thing which you mentioned, for instance, having a database of say...
What you have.
Yes,
in
and
stock.
who your possible taxpayers are. Because how are you projecting when this hasn't been
Information is not there.
Precisely. Somebody talks about revenue collection, say, from motor vehicles. When was the last time you actually did a survey to determine just the number of vehicles and the category of vehicles that you have coming into the city? Because in the absence of that, how then can you figure out what it is that you are supposed to raise? So when you say it is juju, I'm simply agreeing with you because I'm raising the question saying there are all these gray areas that need to be discussed. Perhaps we need to bring somebody who understands this thing better.
For real, because why would you? It's said that then information then fuels, or rather information and data then fuels the decisions you make, or should fuel the decisions that you make later. So here we are making decisions bereft of data, without information. You're planning essentially, and you don't even have the stuff for the plan.
And Wanjiru is right.
But public land is vested in counties with a few qualifications, because national government, like the properties that national government owns, are actually on county land. And one of the big disputes they've had is the failure by national government to pay property rates to the county. And it's a long-standing feud. So at some point, I think there was some 90 billion owed by the national government to Nairobi County for failure to pay rates. And national government used all, and when they were switching off electricity to City Hall was saying, but you haven't paid us rates. We haven't paid for power because you're not paying us. So there's I think you're right. Let's get somebody who can come and bundle this, because there are misdeeds on both sides. National, but counties are complicit when it comes to land.
Okay, we're running out to the top of the hour, but let's look at really quickly what's happening in Ethiopia. We saw about a day ago that the Prime Minister had gone to the battlefront and said, you know what, I'm also going to join to fight. Ethiopia's Nobel Peace Prize-winning Prime Minister has gone to the battlefront to take charge in a year-long war as rival fighters approach the capital, his government announced yesterday. And Ethiopian Olympic legend Haile Gebrselassie yesterday announced plans to go to the battlefront as well. Everybody's picking up and saying we are going to join in this fight. Also joining the front is distance runner Faiza Lilesa, who became famous for his protest at the 2016 Rio Olympics for crossing his wrists over his head, a sign showing anger against how the government was treating the Oromo people. Several high-profile Ethiopians have made similar announcements as fighting intensifies and rebels saying they are advancing towards the capital of Addis Ababa. State media showed no images of Abiy Ahmed, 45-year-old former soldier, and his spokeswoman, Bilene Siyum, dismissed a request for details on his location as incredible. He arrived at the front Tuesday, according to a government spokesman, and says, all right, we're fighting. I'm joining you.
Tricky situation this. There's a gentleman by the name of Idris Deby. Okay? Chadian president. Pulled a similar stunt.
And what happened?
He's with the
ancestors.
Sorry to laugh, but I'm like, the way CT puts it. Yes.
This situation is not a pretty one at all. And as the days come, inching closer and closer to Addis Ababa, and this is just, as we would say in Nigeria, it's just here.
Yeah, but
it's just here.
You know, watching this scary scenario unfold, I think about the African Union that has continued to say that this is an internal matter. This is a civil war.
It is.
And the government is then using the refusal for humanitarian aid, starving people under the guise of fighting this battle.
A big conversation that could definitely be had. We're coming around to 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room. At 7 o'clock, we're asking the question, is Kenya ready for another Eurobond? More money, more needs. Is problems. The country ready? We'll be joined by two guests in the studios in a few minutes. Coming around 7 o'clock, it's hear what the news has to say. For now, it is 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. High Court Judge Said Juma Chitembo's woes continue to deepen with another ouster petition filed at the Judicial Service Commission. Francis Wambua, in a petition supported by former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, accuses Chitembwe of gross misconduct, judicial incompetence, malice, conflict of interest and corruption. In the petition, Wambua wants JSC to suspend Chitembwe and recommend to President Uhuru Kenyatta to establish a tribunal to hear and determine allegations against the High Court judge. The main content of Sonko's leaked videos and audio form the bulk of Wambua's latest onslaught on Chitembwe. In the petition, Wambua accuses Chitembwe of soliciting and receiving bribes through Amana Saidi Jirani, the same man whose name featured prominently in a petition dated September 1st, filed by Imrad BJ and David Ole Kilusu. Amana is alleged to be a proxy, nominee and relative to Chitembwe. The petitioner cites the judge for lacking independence and impartiality. The Ministry of Health has defended its recent directive that unvaccinated people will be denied essential government services from next month. Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui said last week that anyone not vaccinated will be denied essential government services, with restrictions in entertainment joints and other places in what has sparked outrage. National Task Force on Vaccine Deployment Chairperson Dr. Willis Ahwale defended the directive, saying there is no two-way when it comes to the fight against the pandemic. The Kenya National Examination Council has set November 30th as the deadline for all stakeholders to ensure that the data for candidates sitting examinations next year are confirmed and properly keyed into the system. NEC Chief Executive Officer David Njegere said that any amendments to the candidate statements should be submitted to the council immediately. Among the information is the candidate's birth year, gender, while the names of Form 4 candidates are required based on the content of their KCPE certificate. In addition, KCPE candidates are required to ensure that their index numbers are properly indicated. According to the education calendar, the KCPE exam will take place between March 7th and 10th next year, while the KCSE exam will take place from March 11th and April 23rd. President Uhuru Kenyatta has expressed Kenya's readiness to diversify its partnerships in the ongoing revival and upgrading of the country's railway systems. The president said Transnet Engineering Company, a state-owned South African manufacturer of railway components including freight wagons, locomotives and passenger coaches, could partner with Kenya Railways in the ongoing revamp of the country's railway infrastructure. The president spoke when he toured the Transnet Engineering Factory in Kiriousport, Pretoria on the final day of the three-day state visit to South Africa. The body of a woman who disappeared last week has been discovered buried in a shallow grave along the banks of River Molo in Mogotio, Baringo County. According to Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Detectives based in Mombasa exhumed the decomposing remains of Veronica Canini from a shallow grave at a secluded snake-infested thicket along the river that drains its waters into Lake Baringo. This is after they were led to the scene of the murder by a suspected killer, Moses Kipchirchir Ruto. Before Canini met her death, she was a well-known trader who sold seat covers in Mombasa town. Now, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muthui has urged speakers and presiding officers across Africa to insist on free, fair and credible elections in the upcoming electoral polls in several countries across the continent, including Kenya. He said that speakers and presiding officers should ensure peaceful transitions, noting that future generations will remember them for these democratic principles. Speaker Muthui made the remarks at the conference of the Commonwealth Speakers and Presiding Officers Africa region held in Kigali, Rwanda. The guest of honor during the official opening of the three-day conference was President of the Republic of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. The US, France and Germany have joined other countries in urging their citizens to leave Ethiopia as fighting between federal forces and rebel groups moves closer to their capital Addis Ababa. The UN has also announced evacuation flights for family members of its staff in the country. The presidents of neighboring Kenya and South Africa have joined calls for an urgent ceasefire. As the country's situation worsens in Ethiopia, there are increasing concerns about what happens next. In November of last year, armed conflict broke out in Tigray region between Ethiopian government forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Since then, the conflict has spread to other parts of the country. And Sweden's Prime Minister-elect Magdalena Andersson has handed in her resignation hours after being appointed by Parliament after her budget failed to pass and the Junior Green Party quit the coalition government. While her stint was unexpectedly brief, Andersson made history by becoming the first woman elected to the post of Prime Minister in Sweden. She was to formally take over tomorrow. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, and after 7 o'clock, as it usually happens, this is why we see traffic has built up in most parts of the city this morning. Uhuru Highway heading out into the CBD is already jam-packed tight today, and we're seeing pockets of traffic along Gong Road is heading out into the CBD as well. Thika Superhighway then waited for just at 7 o'clock to pack up, and we've seen that now spilling over well past the drive-in today. Kiambu Road also some traffic there, actually quite some. I think we're on now 3 lanes where there should be 2, and going closer to 8 o'clock we're likely to see 4. All right, taking a look at that industrial area circuit. Lunga, Likoni and Lusaka, spilling over then to the Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road, and Jogo Road also piling up quite some just past Makadara and then heading out towards Charimoyo, and then the roundabout at City Stadium today. All right, that's already built up. Haile Selassie also packing the punch as well. All right, traffic hour in a short while, but everybody is out and about. Hopefully we can keep it safe this morning. Let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods. Entering into a sticky situation, let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the
At 8 minutes past
Situation
7
Room.
o'clock, this
the
is
only
Kenya's
way
biggest
to start.
conversation. Indeed, the only way to start your day. Karibu Sana. The live stream is up on SpiceFM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Around the country, 94.4 in Nairobi, 96.0 in Nakuru. Our Nyeri frequency having some issues this morning, and that is being worked on. However, don't forget, using the live stream, you can also reach us for conversations this morning. All right, it's a packed room this morning. I feel like I should be doing roll call. So
who's in the room?
Yeah, or who's not? Okay, so who's not in the room? Eric Latiff is not here this week. For the rest of this week, focusing on matters devolution at the Devolution conference that's going on in Makueni County. Okay, so roll call. City Muga.
Yes.
Let's start the hour with today's proverb, and then now we can.
Asiyejua utu sio mtu. Asiyejua utu sio mtu.
Okay.
If you do not know how to be humane, you are not human.
Okay. Definitely this is going to bleed into our conversations today. I can already feel it. And I can see Wanjiru nodding. So, Wanjiru Gikonyo is a guest host through this week. Wanjiru Gikonyo is a founding member of the Institute for Social Accountability, here with us today. And also in the room, we have Kisumu East MP, Shakil Shabir.
Yes.
Karibu Sana.
Asante sana.
You're not a stranger to the room.
No.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Part and parcel of Kisumu now.
Part and parcel of Kisumu.
The room.
The room is part and parcel. The room is part and parcel of Kisumu, indeed. Karibu Sana, as we have this conversation also on whether Kenya is ready for another Eurobond. We're also joined by economist Churchill Ogutu, who is IC asset manager for Mauritius. I think that's really interesting. Maybe you give us a little bit of that information. But welcome to the Situation Room. We're having this conversation this morning. Quite a lot of details involved in this. The question being this morning, is Kenya ready to go this way again? So a little bit of background with that one, Jiro.
Yeah, the background is that we've been running a campaign called the Okoh Uchumi Coalition campaign. And the reason we felt pressed to do this is because obviously Kenya is facing a debt crisis due to borrowing expensively, irresponsibly for projects that don't have returns, and a lack of accountability. Now, we also know that with commercial borrowing, since between 2008 and 2018, external loans to lower and middle income governments increased exponentially, with private lending going up by 240%. This has been occasioned by cheap credit in the Western markets. Now, as African countries have borrowed, many of them have gone into debt crisis, debt distress. We saw the recent case of Zambia, and of course we have our own example here. Bringing it home, Kenya is now floating its fifth Eurobond. We've had 4 Eurobonds, and we have concerns as a coalition. I think the Auditor General has raised concerns, Parliament has raised concerns around those Eurobonds. The first Eurobond, there is some funds that were not couldn't be traced. I don't know if that was ever resolved. The use and application of the Eurobonds was not clear. Eurobonds, by their very nature, are not based on a strong accountability framework like multilateral borrowing would be. Eurobonds assume that the government is going to comply with its laws and is going to be accountable. So, these creditors don't ask those questions. They don't ask those questions, and when it comes to the crunch, you must pay. Government has not been able to renegotiate the Eurobond terms and repayments, because if you open up those contracts, the penalties are really, really high.
Right.
So because Eurobonds, we have heavy Eurobonds, there are pertinent questions we must ask as the government seeks to float a fifth Eurobond. Which they are calling the Sovereign Green Bond Climate Finance Bond. And this seems I'm reading Honorable Shakil's text. It seems set to go ahead. So we have to ask the question, have we learnt our lessons? Have we resolved the opacity around the Eurobond? Or is this more money designed to be stolen?
Even before we get to whether we're going to be able to handle it, if the country is going to be able to handle it, maybe Churchill, I think it's necessary to say, okay, Eurobond, explain it. What exactly does it mean? And what exactly does it provide for the country in the first place? Because this could be Greek to very many people. What does it mean? It could be translated as the country is getting more money, period. What does it mean?
Okay, thanks. In its essence, a Eurobond is a bond that is issued not locally, but it's issued in a different jurisdiction. Here we are looking at Ireland and London. That's where all the Eurobonds that have been issued by Kenyan government have been issued from. You find that locally, in any given month, the government issues bonds but are domiciled locally. But now Eurobonds are a bit different. They are now domiciled internationally, so that's where the difference is Eurobonds. Nothing to do with the currency euro, but it's just that it's offshore. It's not onshore, unlike the domestic bonds. Obviously, what does it do? It's like a blank check, unlike the multilateral loans from the World Banks, the IMF. There are some conditions, or some of these loans are targeted towards specific projects. You might be building a hospital somewhere, so there's a loan that is pegged towards that hospital that you're going to build. So those are project loans. But now with Eurobonds, those are now a blank check that the government receives. How it spends the money, that's where Wanjiru was trying to point out that there's been a bit of some opacity where the money ends up.
What's a bond?
A bond?
Yes, what is it?
Okay, let me try to put it in simple language. Yes. It's different. It's somehow like a loan. I know people understand the concept of a loan. You go to a bank, you receive money, and then you pay over a period of time. The interest and also the principal component. But with the bond, the same principle happens, whereby...
Is it a financial instrument?
It's a financial instrument, whereby if you take if the government or a lender issues a bond for, say, 5 years, they'll pay periodic, what's called coupon payments. It might be every 6 months, it might be every 12 months for the duration of the bond. And then at the end of the term of the bond, the lender will repay back the borrower. The borrower will repay back the lender the full amount. That's principle.
It sounds like a promissory note.
No, it's a bond. Starts from the word to bind.
Yes.
The government binds itself.
Yes.
The borrower binds himself. So gives a bond. Bond. Shylock took a bond from...
Muga.
No. Shylock gave a bond to, what was this guy's name?
Brutus. Was it Brutus or who's?
No. In
Shakespeare's...
Shakespeare, come on.
And the Pound of Flesh.
Yes, the Merchant of Venice.
Yes.
So Shylock gave a bond. So bond has terms. Means, actually the bond is a very old term, utilized normally by governments, and when, even in the olden times when a state wanted to go to war with another, it would go to Spain would go to the Pope for a bond and others. So this bond is an old term that we bind ourselves to the following conditions to pay. Promissory notes are another form of an agreement to bind. That promissory notes have certain other things, but the bond is an old term.
It's intractable, meaning...
you remember Shylock went for his pound of flesh.
Yes.
So it's a bond.
Okay.
So you understand? It binds you.
It's
maybe
unbreakable.
Unbreakable, and sometimes something can incur certain charges, certain things that are not in a normal loan situation, like vultures. The vulture fund, the vulture... what they call financial vultures. So if you don't meet the bond, the vultures come in, buy that bond.
Yes.
And it's traded on the market.
Okay. So does the government need to then get permission to get these bonds? And we're saying, when I say permission then from Parliament, permission then, or in terms of accountability, is it must the government show accountability for these bonds? Because essentially, if it's a blank check, you're going out to get however much money that you need or however much money that you want. Then must you show what you've done with it? In the previous one, how did it perform? To say that we can now go and get another one to be able to perform certain needs. Let's take the last one, for example, Eurobond 4. What was done with it? Are there accountability measures that have to be put in place? Or in the nature that it's a blank check and you can do whatever you want, same thing for accountability, you must not then say what it is that you're doing with it? Churchill?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you start with Eurobond 4, that bond was issued around mid-June. And specifically, the funds came in the third week in June. So technically, we had just 1 week to utilize that monies. Remember, the financial year starts in July and ends in June. So if we receive the money in the third week in June, so ideally that money had to be disbursed within that 1 week because it was issued in that financial year. Unless now, so the question is, and that's the 105 billion shilling question. On a monthly basis, the Treasury issues what in the Kenya Gazette, net revenue and expenditure statement, whereby it gives the previous month the disbursements that went to ministries, departments, and agencies. For the month of June, it was never gazetted, and that's on record. So we are not able to see whether these monies that came in, if we can now be able to connect the dots, whether they were disbursed. So that's another thing. I think it was an oversight. I don't know whether it's an oversight or it was something that was preempted. But having said that, that's ultimately whereby people who look at trying to understand how the monies were disbursed, you can be able to connect the dots just looking at that statement. Yeah.
I'm actually in shock. It was not gazetted. That's a violation of the law. Honorable Shakir. Where is Parliament?
The month of June.
In our public interest.
Firstly, to be cynical, I'm an accountant by training. I can give you any figure you want to make. We massage figures. So those
as accountants or as Parliament?
As accountants.
Or both.
And as Parliament.
Why do you think they are referred to as bean counters?
And as Parliament?
My late grandfather told me, don't be an accountant because they're fiddlers, and don't be a lawyer because they're liars. His grandchildren are the accountants or lawyers. Now, what I'm trying to suggest is this. Firstly, those figures, even if they do come, you're probably going to find somebody who's just sat down and done it. And I'm going to make a confession on this division. I used to be the senior manager of Diamond Trust, and every month our branch had to make a report to the central bank, and that required so much background and etc. We decided to be always the first. So I used to sit down and you look at it, and I just speculate, and I put it down and send it. They never found out. The situation is, these are figures that are put in. Nobody actually looks at them. Yeah.
But isn't that Parliament's job?
Why?
I'm coming to that. Okay. I am coming to that. Now, Parliament's job, they're meant to send us those figures. That statement is put in the Gazette, is meant to come to us. Firstly, what happens is when your budget policy statement comes out, and we go back to this thing, that platform that we're building, that budget, you see, the budget process starts a long way back. Once you've done that budget policy statement and it's been passed, you've literally given the executive a blank check. They can go and borrow because they say, we told you wanted to do A, B, C, and D. Yeah? And we haven't got the funds right now, but we're going to go borrow. You're giving them blank check. The only correction of that that blank check was meant to be the debt management unit. You were not. The debt management unit is a non-entity. It doesn't work. If in Treasury you're a very good economist, but you don't people don't like you. They send you to the first floor, and the debt management unit, and it's sitting there. The poor guys have got nothing. You know, the one thing I must say, I've been to Treasury a number of times. We have some brilliant economists, brilliant, World Bank standards come from there. You know, we go to other countries and do a great job. But over here, we are frustrated by those who are superior to us, have been put in our, and they are Form 4 failed economist or whatever. Okay. And they know what they have to do is to, I have been told I must give so much money to so-and-so. So, unfortunately, that is one case that we have. Now, what we are trying to do is we're saying the budget process should have been very much in a control of Parliament. Very much in control of Parliament. It hasn't been.
Why?
Because the information doesn't come through in time, and also we are, what is the word, in the pocket of the executive. Because it comes to you, I know one case, and I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. It comes to you, the minister and others come to you in a workshop or somewhere and say, listen, we've sent you the supplementary budget. Boss says, pass it without changing a full stop.
So it's left you to figure out who the boss is, huh?
Yeah. No, you have to, it's without passing a full stop, without changing. So when we change, and we did one or two times, remember their interest on bread and A and B, and the last minute, as the report is being read out, somebody is there telling the chair to change and put the last minute. I mean, the former chair has told me this, and so sometimes, and what happens is we are held at ransom. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, there's something that I want to ask here.
So you're told pass it.
Even
we don't pass it.
I understand.
And let me finish.
Yes.
Our minority interest is not noted on that objection.
Yes.
Even if you raise something,
is the vote recorded?
Citi, go ahead with your
Who decides?
question.
Is it the committee or is it in plenary?
Citi, can you just ask your question first?
Can we trace who approves and who doesn't approve in Parliament? If Kenyans were to say, who said yes?
In the committee, the committee report goes, and then the committee report can be altered by the majority in Parliament. And normally it is because people have been talked to.
So does it mean that as civil society we should try to be in the room when the committee is meeting? Is that possible? Can we petition? How do we hold Parliament accountable?
I think you wanted to say something before I say that.
Yes, I did. What I wanted to ask you was, Mheshimiwa, you see, there is something called public good. It's not really very complicated. And it's something that you as parliamentarians are custodians of, okay? Are we saying that it isn't possible to have a discourse with these mandarins who come to you in the middle of the night and in workshops to talk to you, to tell them, folks, listen, we understand what you're trying to do, but this thing you're trying to achieve is best achieved if we follow this route. Do you have an opportunity to have that conversation? Because what they want, one can understand, but the way they want you to go about it gets us to where we're always talking about this debt we can't seem to get out of and what have you. Are you in a position to have these conversations with them? To say, folks, let's just give you our input so that you understand why it is we're taking this position. And if you are able to have such a conversation, does it ever have an impact?
When we start looking at the individual items on the budget policy statement.
Yes.
Now you've been told that we must do everything. So we say, no, we don't want to do. We don't want it, for argument's sake, tax on bread. We're not going to have it. We're not going to have it. The only thing that works, and there where the parliamentarians are all together, And that's what we need, is CDF. You touch CDF, my friend. It doesn't matter who you are. You touch CDF and you will hear. But the rest, for some reason, it just goes through. And you can talk till you're blue. You're sitting in a finance committee. And there's a chair and things have been planned out already. And you are going to object and you object and you're given the right to object and you say, okay, I'm going to be in minority. Huh? Then it goes to the House. We make the report, minority interest, it goes to the House, is passed. So the situation basically is that we have failed in that process. That's why we're asking that something must be there. Now what is that? You see, when you as civil society, not civil society, the people come late, when the budget is being read,
it's too late.
It's too late.
This is the time.
You need to be at the budget policy statement. You want to work, and this is the platform that we are now working on, that you start your lobbying.
To start lobbying, because we're essentially saying that the people who've been given the job clearly are not able to do that. We're going to go to a break in a minute, so maybe we'll save the next few questions until we take a look at weather and traffic. But here we are saying, essentially, call on the people to come in and lobby because we're in a tight situation and we're not able to do it on our own.
No, they're saying
that we are not overseeing
as
Parliament
we should,
as they make the ultimate decision about what gets funded.
Has Mheshimiwa not repeatedly said we have failed?
I've heard him
many times. I've heard him.
The question is then, if there is a set of people who have failed, what then is the next action?
After the break, maybe he can tell us when he talks about the lobbying, who he thinks could effectively pursue this course of action.
Indeed. Yes. It's 7:30. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Is Kenya ready for the next Eurobond? Eurobond 5 coming up. And we're asking the question, what happened to 4? What happened to 3? What happened to 2? What happened to 1? In the studio this morning with Churchill, Ogutu, and MP Shakil Shabir as we continue with this conversation. Let's take a look at traffic and weather. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
This is something people need to understand. Your money, my money, equals our money. We cannot have your money is our money and my money is my money.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840. We Kenyans love a great time. What better way to have a good time than listening to the greatest music hits in town and experience a party like never before? From 80s, 90s throwback, reggae, R&B music, and much more. You sure will be bumping your head. Watch Party All DJs on Thursday at 10 p.m. and Friday at 10:30 p.m. only on KTN Ho.
The weather with SpiceFM.
19 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's cloudy in Nakuru at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 15. In Nyeri, sunny at 15, highs of 26 and lows of 13. And Eldoret at 15 is mostly cloudy, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Light rain in Mombasa continues at 29, highs of 33 and lows of 26. And we're looking at rain in Malindi as well at 28, highs of 32 and lows of 27. Rain showers now in Kisumu at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 20. And also looking at a few clouds in Kakamega at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 16. Continues to be a sunshiny day in Kampala at 19, highs of 30 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is sunny at 28, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Johannesburg, light rain at 13, highs of 18 and lows of 11. We're looking at clear conditions in Lagos at 25, Lagos highs of 33 today. And Kinshasa is cloudy at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 22.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Follow your dreams to the land of the rising sun with a host of academic opportunities to pursue your undergraduate and postgraduate studies in Japan's leading universities. Visit www.studyinjapan-africa.com to find out how you can enroll to the program. They say the world can never run dry of talent. We just need to celebrate them. Join Jamal and the lovely Laura as they give us a brilliant showcase of 254's finest talent in the music industry and take us through great music hits. Watch Iwake every Saturday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, built up quite some on Mombasa Road this morning and going out towards the SGR, then out past Cabanas. That has slowed down quite some. We're also seeing North Airport Road taking a hit of this, heading out in that direction, then towards the Eastern Bypass. Some traffic there, but it's actually not too bad. Bumper to bumper in some parts, industrial area, that whole square, some traffic this morning as well. All right, let's look at the Uhuru Highway that feeds into the city. I think we're looking at Nyayo Stadium all the way through to Westlands, and causing a lot of traffic there. Red Hill Link Road, use that as your option. Langata Road building up quite some, but not too bad. Folks using the inner roads then to get out onto Ngong Road, which then, boom, you'll get some traffic there as you're heading towards the City Mortuary roundabout. All right, coming out of Westlands, we see the same thing this morning, and then into the CBD as well. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, things are hot and heavy, quite thick, but it has improved. We're not looking at that traffic that spills over all the way past Survey. We are actually, but then outer ring looking much better now. Parklands, looking at Limuru Road, heading out into the city, that's built up quite some as well. We are now in traffic hour. We're going to be there for at least another 1.5 hours. Let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods. Hopefully you will not get into too much of a sticky situation. If you do, let us know. We'll give you the information that other folks let us know as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the studio today with you, Okoh. CT Muga. Our guest host for today, Wanjiru Gikonyo from the Institute of Social Accountability. And we're also joined in the studio as we're asking the question this morning, is Kenya ready for Eurobond 5? Churchill Ogutu is an economist with us today, as well as Kisumu East MP Shakil Shabir, as we continue with that conversation.
Yeah, so government proposes to float the 5th Eurobond looking at climate change. It's a green bond, so which is very compelling. But we've just found out that government did not had 1 week to spend the previous Eurobond of 105 billion, has not accounted for that, failed to publish a gazette. So there are violations around, and they floated that Eurobond in June. And now a few months later, we are floating another one. What should we be looking at? Is government ready? Should Parliament consider approving this Eurobond, or should they push back at this point?
Do we have a say?
Even before we get that, let's look at technically what, should
what
government
exactly
even
should
consider?
be lined up?
Yes.
What should be lined up from the beginning, Churchill? If a government responsible for this action, what should they be looking at before we find out whether they can or cannot?
I think the sequence of this budget process, as had been talked earlier on, is that it's been approved by the Parliament before now it's even executed by executive. So even the figures that we are looking at, even for the current financial year, there will be another Eurobond issue even in the current financial year. This one for the green bond is for the next financial year, not even this financial year. And this one is 124 billion. Separately, Treasury had came up with something called liability management operations, whereby they are looking at their stock of commercial debt. Commercial debt does not even include Eurobonds only. There's also syndicated loans. So the syndicated loans that they want to refinance is around 351 billion. So basically, with syndicated loans, the interest is a bit variable. It keeps on changing. At some point, it had an interest rate of 8% during just before pre-COVID levels, because it's benchmarked on US rates, and then there's some additional premium on top of that. So it was coming to around 8%. Now it's come down because of the US rates, where it has come down. So the rationale was that we need to refinance those expensive syndicated loans, but with Eurobond. So it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, because ultimately, instead of having, if this comes to fruition, this liability management operation, which is expected to be done in this current financial year, so we're looking at close to 471 billion issues of Eurobond.
Just hold this thought. The deck chairs on the Titanic, I understand. We are now borrowing money that is less expensive than the ones we borrowed before. Are we borrowing to pay the expensive debt, or are we just piling a debt upon another debt?
Now, this one is more of reorganizing this liability management.
Yes, explain this reorganizing. What are we reorganizing?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
May I? Last year, the minister came to this committee, both budget and gave us a very thing, how we're going to rationalize, get rid of our commercial loans, and we are going to do A, B, and C, and this is how we are going to reduce our payments of interest, etc. A very simple solution I will show you. A very simple example. I have 4 loans. I have a loan of 100,000, 1 million, and another loan of 900,000, another loan of 3 million, for argument's sake. On the 3 million loan, I'm paying, say, 150,000 a month. On the 1 million loan, I'm paying maybe 180,000 a month, and another 100,000. So we're paying about 350,000 a month, right? Yeah. And your total loans are about 4 million. So, and you see that this 350,000, you've been taking the loans and the payments are coming up. I think to yourself, now listen, A, these loans are expensive, and B, the installments are high, because some are short term. So we come to you and say, listen, we have to make this thing. Let us borrow 6 million. 5 million of it, immediately we will liquidate those loans. And the 6 million we'll borrow over the next 24 months. And our installment will be 200,000. This is simple calculation, simple. Yeah. And that's what we want to do. But we cannot pay those loans first until we borrow. Makes sense. Well, I promise you by the end of this thing, this will be sorted out. Rationalize this thing, this and that. Actually, we wanted him actually impeach the guy. And so a couple of us decided to put a motion for impeachment of the CS. If you're hearing, I remember I told you this. Then, of course, it didn't happen. The money never went where it was going to go. In the December, following up, he came for the supplementary, and we asked him, what happened? Oh, no, we are sorting it out. So you're lying to Parliament. You have lied under oath to Parliament. And then you're saying, these things need time, right? So when you need time, these things fall out. When we go to look at the figures, I walked to Treasury. Me, a member of Parliament, a senior member of the Finance Committee, everything. It took me 3 hours to get a document that is meant to be available.
In the public domain.
At this moment, they keep telling us, we've sent you the document, and in the Finance Committee, I say, here's the document you sent. Look at it, it's empty. Half of this is not there, and it is 2 years old, 3 years old.
This is. It sounds like a fiasco to me.
No, yeah.
Because here we are, and it's clear. There's some things which are very clear. It's not if, ands, or maybes. It's that these are the lines that actually should be followed in a proper budget line making process. But then we come and we bring it to Parliament, where the decisions for public good are supposed to be made. But then it's not happening because you're saying your hands are tied, we can't do anything.
It's after the event. You've already spent the money. It's after the event. Do you understand me? So sometimes when you're budgeting and you are in a household, yeah, the first thing when the father goes and drinks the money is after the event. Now you have to make certain things. So that is what's actually happened. Now let me come back to you on this issue, if you might allow me. We need you guys, a platform, yeah? Please bear with us for a minute. The CSO, simplify that budget, deepening debate, collate and synthesize the budget information at time, yeah? Make an independent critical analysis, yes? You have your authority. I've talked to you many times about this, and I'm doing it again. Bring out new information to budget decision making, even teach us. Training expertise directly, legislation as well as others. Budget accountability through analysis and dissemination to the people. Make it simple so they understand. When do you have to do this? There are 4 stages. If you miss one, you guys come late. Start at the drafting stage. When it's being drafted, the budget policy. That's normally closed. That's where the opportunity for CSOs can come and bring initiative, lobbying, etc. And the ability to bring new information onto public debate. This public debate they don't have. They just sit at KICC, 5 of them, and they decide. Then, it happens. You call many people, but few people turn up, and even the PS, nobody comes. Then there's a legislative section. That's the first comprehensive site we ever have of the budget. Be with us at that time. At that time, not be with us. Start your debate. Like we were doing other things. Like you used to do, you used to keep us on track on our CDF. Yeah. Then the implementation stage, the legislative stage is where you want to build budget literacy and training among the people. Public. Start making a noise. Yeah. Then we come to the implementation stage. That's too late. Executive function. You normally come there at the implementation stage. This 2 days ago, I had a meeting. I had a discussion with the IMF guy. Yeah.
Tobias.
Yeah. I don't know him. I've not met him. One time in the 10th Parliament, we used to have the World Bank and the IMF coming to us. And you know what they said? We are bankers. We are bankers. We look at it, but we have to listen to the noise. And the noise we made last time, it's very much in the ears.
Still in their ears.
So why have they gone to the bond?
Okay.
Now I'm going to come there. I'm going to come there.
We'll come there. Okay, let's take a quick commercial break and then we'll come back and then
I'll tell
look
you
at this.
Why we're going to the bond.
Why are we going to the bond?
And who is the bond?
And what Churchill said previously. What did we do with the previous one?
Now, what is
and
the
how are we
bond
going
as
to
well?
make sure that this one actually does make sense, if it will? It's 7:45. We're going to come back with this conversation in a bit.
Is this...
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Don Roman will lead a happy life with his small family until tragedy strikes, which will lead him to look for true love from 4 other women and sires 5 sons from all the different women. Although they come from different worlds, they are bound together by the same blood. Find out how their lives will become intertwined when they start learning the truth behind their identities. To catch how things unfold in this intriguing show, watch Los Bastardos on Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. on KTN Home.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
Is Kenya ready
done
for
right.
Eurobond 5? That's the question that we're asking this morning on Kenya's Biggest Conversation. In the room with Collins Ogutu, an economist, as well as Kisumu East MP, Shakil Shabir, and saying, okay, so where are we with this? It seems that some hands are tied here and there. So, Wanjiru, Shakil says you're coming to the party too late. This noise we're making, these questions that we're asking, is too late in the game, and that maybe Parliament needed some hand-holding previously.
Well, not hand-holding, because Parliament is the holder of the purse and they have their responsibility. But what he's saying is true, that as civil society, we haven't mobilized the citizens to put pressure. So there's a failure on two fronts, and we're not saying two wrongs make a right. We need to right this. In that, Parliament is being bought. They're in the pocket of the executive. There are very few who stand up and say no. On the other hand, we have become very technical in our engagement. We come late to the party. We need to change the game. This is why we are creating the Okoh Uchumi platform. And I think this is an agenda that we've already started mobilizing towards. My question when we went on break is, does the government have the authority to float this bond under the present BPS, or are they waiting to approve the BPS of 2022, which is currently under discussion? The BPS is being prepared now.
That's correct. And this is now you need to talk.
Is the green bond in 2022 or is it in 2021?
What on earth is a BPS?
Okay, so
budget policy statement.
It is the annual plan of the government, annual spending and revenue plan of the government. Once it's approved, actually Parliament is a sideshow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
so
it gives constitutional cover to the Treasury to borrow or implement anything in there.
So does government
bond
have the authority at this moment to float this bond?
When you're talking about the green bond, that's for the next financial year.
Mhm.
And for the budget policy statement, it gives its outlines for the next financial year. So this is beginning July next year, and also up all the way, I think, up to June 2025. So I think it's 3 or 4 fiscal years ahead. So it gives you the numbers of where the Eurobond for the next financial year will be. So when you talk about the green bond, that's for the next financial year. That's what they have articulated it. If you look at the budget policy statement that was passed in February this year, and which had the numbers for the current financial year, it also had Eurobonds and also these liability management operations that we talk about. And now that we've talked about green bond sovereign issuance, right now I think the currency out there is all about environmental, social, and governance issues bonds. So that's taken a momentum in the international markets. So I think it makes sense from that perspective to issue a green bond, at least geared towards green projects. But then the question is, do we have like a portfolio of green projects that needs to be funded? If you're looking at 105 billion to finance green projects, is there a portfolio of that? And I remember the Finance Committee, when it passed the budget policy statement, that was for last year, and they also have recommendations that needs to be adhered to. One of the things that they put out clearly is that the government needs to give a list of all the projects that will be financed, be it domestic debt or external debt. So when you talk about the green bond, we need to see a portfolio of the green projects that need to be financed. We might end up greenwashing, this risk of greenwashing. We just put like, oh, it's a green bond, but then it ends up not getting into the green projects.
But is that Churchill, is that what is most likely to happen? Because if we're going by just our history, this is something we've discussed here with Honorable Shakir on many occasions. We are told this beautiful story of what this money is intended for. And then when you follow the trail, you're shocked and surprised that the money doesn't actually end up where it is you were told.
A perfect example is the infrastructure bonds. So the government issues bonds on a monthly basis, and then there are some specific bonds that are specifically called infrastructure bonds. So the idea behind...
for the Comrade Dam and the other one.
Yes.
Now for the domestic bonds, yes. So the idea before used to give, even in the prospectus, if you go to the Central Bank of Kenya website, they gave a prospectus for all the bond issues that they are targeting to issue. So for the infrastructure bonds, up until I think 2016, 2017, they used to at least specify the projects that will benefit, or the sectors. This is either roads, energy, or water projects that will benefit from the infrastructure bond issues. Remember that infrastructure bond issues is issued to the domestic market, and those bonds fly off the shelves. They're issued in 1 week. They're looking at the issues that were done in January. They're looking for 50 billion. The amount that they received was 125 billion, just telling you the interest that people have. But then if you drill down to the specifics, which infrastructure bonds were funded by these infrastructure bonds that was issued in January this year, April this year, or even August this year, that's where opacity comes in. And I'm afraid that even if you get into this green bond, sovereign green bond issues, that will also be the sad story that will come. Yes, issuing of green bond, but what are the projects that will benefit from that? And that needs to be clear from the onset.
Where does this money go to? Because surely it's a lot of money. There must be a footprint somewhere.
Please ask me what a bond is.
Again,
it's an easier question to answer. There's this account we hear of and we see in the Auditor General report called the Exchequer account.
Okay, Shaquille,
please let me answer to you.
What is a bond?
The Eurobond. I've done my research. Is a market made up of, I'm going to read this, investors, bankers and borrowers. That they come to, they come together onto a market and they say, I have some money, I want to invest. I stole it from here,
okay,
or whatever, they don't tell you. The Eurobond offers autonomy, offers anonymity. It offers also a haven for
so
tax.
So it's a safe place to hide.
It's a tax haven.
Yeah.
Anonymity.
Anonymity. It offers anonymity. And it isn't what you think it is. It isn't the government of Europe or Poland or wherever
it's
giving
money
a
from
bond.
Wherever.
It is it's the organizers is the European market, money market, EU money market. There's a book written by somebody on this issue. And when they were trying to stabilize the euro, when the Poland, etc., they are the ones who destroyed and then saved Spain and others.
And Greece.
That's when, remember I talked about Shylock. Yes. This is a Shylocking of money. Now, the reason they don't care where you spend the money is because there's such strict penalties and charges.
So they focus exactly on the penalties and charges.
And then, yes. And then also, they get money. Let's say I have money. And I have money sitting in Switzerland. And I have a money market operator. So somebody helps me. And like some of our politician friends, I'm some so-called very smart guy. You see them here, very smartly dressed and whatever, a money market operator. I don't want to give you names. And they go and they sit in Mauritius. They sit in
Collins.
No, Mauritius is the closest they have to.
I'll say Collins, not Churchill.
Yeah, and if you go to Mauritius, you'll find these guys, or wherever, and they will tell you, look, let's, so and so is putting together a package for Kenya. Yeah. So what you do, let's put some money there. So you take your money anonymously to that organizer. JP Morgan, Citibank, this and that, they take their percentage up front. They take your money. They're investing your money, so they take a percentage from you. They're lending it to me, they take a percentage from me. Then they go and insure it. Then they go and make sure that it's in arbitration. And then they lend you the money. So the money, which is probably, I'm being cynical, the Eurobond, first Eurobond, we went to America. Now let's find out where our politicians were at that time. They had actually visited, they'd been out there. Second Eurobond, the main boys, where the big money is, where were they? Third Eurobond, where were they? Fourth Eurobond, who was in the United States recently?
Okay, so in about a
minute. So what
I'm
trying to suggest, you have money market operators. I'm not doing it. Oh, no, I don't know about them. But there's somebody saying, listen, we have to reinvest that money that was yours, so to make more money. But there's this Eurobond. Oh, it's our money, our country. But I can't bring it back. That is what we said the STAR initiative, Stolen Asset Recovery. Said, bring us the money back. We'll reinvest it in infrastructure.
Okay, Shakil, so I have to ask you, but even as time runs out, I have to ask you, and in a minute, you said it's starting late. What then is required to be done right now to either stop you're saying it's too late. In the next one that could come up, what needs to be done right now to have accountability as a clear and present necessity?
These are bankers. Tell them that things are not good here, and we as the people of Kenya don't approve this thing. You've got all your things fine. You're going to take us to the cleaners, fine. But we are, you're going to come to us, huh? It's not that you're going to come and take our asset, take it and sell it somewhere else. Yeah, it's our country. You cannot take our soil away from us. You can't take this and that. But any banker is scared. Yeah, any banker is scared. If you keep quiet, you are like Sherlock, right? Then they want their pound of flesh. We are saying you can't take it, but without taking our blood. That sort of thing, if you know Merchant of Venice. But what I'm trying to suggest is this. This Eurobond is a cartel of people, maybe even, not even Kenyans, but others as well, who have looted money and put it somewhere. And they now need to have it returned. Because if you loot money and put it somewhere, it's only the Swiss and the Mauritians and others. Where is Mauritius now? Why is Mauritius buying all the assets in Kenya?
Thank you very much, Shakir. I think clearly a conversation that needs to continue, and we have to say thank you for joining us in the room this morning. Churchill Ogutu, Shakil Shabir, thank you for being part of this conversation this morning. Is Eurobond 5 the way to go in this country? And I think clearly from this, no. The conversation definitely continues. Coming into Justice Thursdays after 8 o'clock. We're going to take a break now and say thank you for having that conversation with us. It continues after 7 o'clock, which is now.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Court of Appeal has set December 1st as the date for hearing an appeal filed by former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko against his removal from office. The appeal will be heard by a 3-judge bench appointed by the court's president Daniel Musinga. In recent days, Sonko has exposed alleged corruption in the judiciary it says contributed to his dismissal from office. Yesterday, through a Kenyan Francis Mbua, Sonko filed a formal petition with the Judicial Service Commission seeking the removal of High Court Judge Said Juma Chitembwe in connection with corruption. The documents submitted to the JSC include a document written by Sonko containing various allegations against Chitembwe, which he had previously disclosed through recordings. Sonko said he had more communications recorded and was ready to submit them to the JSC. This as Judge Chitembwe has been given 14 days from Monday this week to explain why he should not be removed from office after facing corruption charges. He has already defended himself, saying that the allegations made by Sonko against him are baseless and that they are only aimed at tarnishing his reputation. Now, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has proposed the creation of a National Climate Council to lead climate action at the national level. Odinga noted that the council will be pivotal in helping address climate-related challenges in the country. He emphasized that with proper climate-related policies and structures, Kenya's economy is bound to improve. The African Union Envoy for Infrastructure lauded the 32 counties which have since enacted climate change policy and legal framework as part of the mitigation measures aimed at addressing climate-related challenges in the country. The Kazi Mtaani program will be extended until the end of June next year. Housing PS Charles Hinga says these will offer relief to thousands of youth enlisted in the project. He adds that the expanded phase will equip the youth with skills aimed at creating job opportunities as well as enable them to engage in self-employment in fields such as plumbing, masonry, carpentry, among others. The Kazi Mtaani Phase 3 will be implemented in over 900 informal settlements across all 47 counties. The recruitment process kicked off last week ahead of the official start in December. The court has barred Nairobi County Government, its officers or its agents from approving development within Karen without consulting the residents. In its ruling, the Environment and Land Court has also restrained the county government or its agents from approving or issuing development permissions or change of user for any development that does not comply with the local physical development plan and the approved plan as published in the Kenya Gazette. This follows a petition by the Karen and Langata District Association challenging the development approval processes by the county. The court heard that KLDA had signed a recognition agreement with the Nairobi City County signed in 2017 requiring development approvals bodies to involve residents on development approvals. To a side story, and a 5-year-old girl continues to receive treatment at Machakos Level 5 Referral Hospital after she was allegedly sexually assaulted by her father and grandfather in Ivumbini village, Mongala area of Machakos County. Local Chief Jacqueline Buva said the suspects were arrested last night by police officers in collaboration with Nyumba Kumi officials after the child recounted the incident. The incident has been strongly criticized by one of Machakos County women leaders, Magdalene Nandwa, who has called on the relevant departments to ensure that legal action is taken against those involved in such acts. The two suspects are currently being held at Machakos police station as investigations continue. Nakwale Governor Salim Vuria has welcomed the delegation from Slovakia government in efforts to forge a partnership on climate change and socio-economic issues. The Slovakian embassy and partners such as the Tencent Africa and SOTA Hub are sponsoring projects in the county to mitigate climatic change and global warming. Vuria informed the delegation of the harsh climatic realities such as the ongoing severe drought that has taken its toll on local farmers and livestock keepers. The Tanzanian government has finally announced that it will allow students who have been forced to drop out of school due to pregnancy to return to school. The Ministry of Education, Science and Technology Professor Joyce Ndalichika has said that the students will be free to resume their studies after delivery. The announcement comes at a time when the debate has been raging in the country about pregnant students being banned from continuing with schools. She called on principals to ensure that female students who dropped out of school for various reasons, including pregnancy, return to school. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
One 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so we're still looking at quite some traffic in most parts of the city this morning. If we take a look at Mombasa Road, that has already built up quite some. It still continues. Kiambu Road is looking quite messy this morning. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, traffic has reduced considerably then going into the CBD, but we have a bumper-to-bumper situation in some parts. Coming out of Westlands, that whole area still continues with traffic here and there. Not to forget that you can use the Red Hill Link Road. You want to use that as an option to get into the city. What does Langata Road look like? Interestingly enough, not too bad this morning. But Gavi Way, however, as you then try to connect at the City Mortuary roundabout, that is looking a little bit messy now. And Uhuru Highway still continues its thing. The turn off right after Bellevue and then heading out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, that has slowed down considerably as well. Okay, Outer Ring, not too bad today. That looks good. The Eastern Bypass is an option for you, as is the Southern Bypass this morning. They're the bypasses, guys, they'll get you out of any sticky situation. Take my word for it. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. It's Thursday. Let's keep things moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
It's 8 minutes past
Nairobi.
8 o'clock on this Thursday, the 25th of November, 2021. You're tuned into Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room with Ndu Okoh, C.T. Muga, and our guest host for today, Wanjiru Gikonyo. It is Justice Thursday. We're having that conversation about what is happening in the country and conversations that we would like to have as far as the judiciary and judicial processes are concerned. We have a guest this morning, and I'll let you know who that is in a short while. I want to say welcome to our audience on KTN Home this morning. Thank you for joining us. And as the conversation continues, wherever you're tuned in around the country, in Nairobi on 94.4 and other frequencies, our live stream is up as well on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. As we start the hour, we're going to start it with proverb. CT?
Asiyejua utu sio mtu. He who does not know how to be humane is not human.
I think that falls in line very beautifully. And that, I think, now paves an inroad for us to introduce our guest for the hour. Justice Thursdays this week welcomes Honourable Justice Jacqueline Kamau. Welcome to the Situation Room this morning. High Court Judge and President of the Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association. Karibu sana to the Situation Room.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you.
You say things.
It's not too hot.
Well,
yeah.
We'll see. It all depends. The ball is squarely and firmly in your court.
Fantastic.
We will wait and see how this conversation goes. But thank you for joining us on Justice Thursday today. Interesting conversations today about supporting the welfare of judges and judicial officers to clear case backlog. So as we jump right into it this morning, Justice Kamau, this has been front and center of the conversation for the last, we don't know how long, about the huge backlog that is needed. Now, as we're looking at this, clearly, there is an outcry from judges and magistrates that support is needed. Paint a picture for us of how difficult this huge backlog of cases then makes it to operate within the system.
Thank you very much for that very important question. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is currently, maybe the unofficial figures of Kenya, we are like at 50 million Kenyans. And we have judicial officers, 703 judicial officers. So it means that 703 judicial officers have to service a population of 50 million. It means that every day when a child is born, that child becomes a potential client for the judiciary in issues of maintenance, in issues of custody, issues of access. So to expect 700 people to really be on top of matters is quite a task. When we look at previously, we had about maybe 43 judges before the constitution came up. And so that's when we had a big number of judges. So you had about maybe 40 or thereabouts. So, and this is a country that is growing. So how do you expect these few people to be able to clear the backlog? So far, I think by last year, there were about over 600,000 cases which are pending. Now, when you calculate at 700 people, it means that every person has to do about over 800 cases per year. Now, the amount of cases that we're given to do, humanly possible, because you're doing cases in the morning, and in the afternoon, you have to sit and do the judgments. So it means that as judges, we are entitled to do about 10 cases. So that's about 220 per year. So if you're telling me
10 cases per month.
10 cases per month.
Okay.
That's ideally what you should do without getting stressed out. But people end up doing even 16, 20, 25 cases and that kind of thing because of really pushing themselves. So if we have to say that we are going to clear 800 and something cases, and that means there are no other new cases coming in. So it's static. But that's not the position. Kenya is already a very litigious society. People have gotten used to the constitutional issues, and they want to test all this in court. So as you finish, every day, even like today, I can tell you how many cases will be filed today, even under certificate of urgency. How many? And we're few. So for now, we have about 70 judges, high court judges. People have died. Some have been promoted to the Court of Appeal. Some have retired. But we are still expected to do the same work for the number of judges, with the same thing.
I'm curious.
Yes.
I've heard this term, and I've even read about it, that we are litigious as Kenyans.
Yes.
What's the threshold? At what point are we just ordinary citizens of the planet? And at what point do we jump that threshold? And now it is we are always rearing to get to court.
Fine. Let me say this. We are not as litigious as maybe other countries like the US, because I've heard the US is very litigious. Your dog is barking, so people take you to court.
Right.
You're blaring music, somebody takes you to court. Here, even if you open a club, unless it's really a nuisance, people will not necessarily take you to court. But now with the Constitution, everything that is being done, people are very hawk-eyed. So they want to know, are you complying with the Constitution? I know my co-host here is very, very good at taking cases to court.
She's actually very loud about it.
I'm
exactly.
a fan of the court.
Yes.
As I
She's a fan
sit
of
here,
the
I'm a
court.
friend
In fact,
of the
we call her a freedom fighter.
Exactly. And the reason why you need those freedom fighters is the only way you can create jurisprudence. So we sit, we don't go and get cases. The cases are brought to us. So if you don't bring the cases as well, then it means then we close.
You see, why I asked the
You wouldn't
question,
be
Justice,
there.
Yeah, you wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be there. So we need those cases.
See, I asked the question because this situation that appears as though we are prone towards always going to court, is it not a good thing that we actually have a citizenry that is alive to the Constitution that they have, the rights that they have, and the legal position that they hold in the country?
Precisely.
And that all they're doing is actually exercising it.
Precisely.
And they say, oh, there are these open channels. And what I am even considering, an even better situation, is that we see it happening every day, and that there's a conversation taking place even with the justice system. Now, what I'm saying may seem commonplace, but if I look around us, this is not common in many of the countries who are even our neighbors. It's not common at all. This freedom that we're talking about, that we enjoy, that we are making a normal conversation as though it's something that we do every day, and we do. I am saying, burdened as you are, it is a good thing.
It is a good thing, and we welcome you, because if you don't bring the cases, then we are not going to get a job. I'm not going to get a salary. So I welcome you, and because and every small thing that we feel strained about. The last time I think they were talking about the 50 kilometers per hour, the way we are going to drive in the streets. Somebody brought the case to court. Justice Odunga did give a decision on that. Is it reasonable? The next person thinks that something is happening. We give a decision. It's important. But the only argument I was making is that because we are very litigious, then we need a bigger pool of people for us to be able to service the cases. Because what is happening is that you have very good cases, but they're stuck in the legal system. And they're not moving as fast. Because I'm not able to push them as fast.
Can I also?
I'm only human.
Can I bring another aspect? Because of course we monitor the budget. We were just talking about the budget, Eurobonds, and the violations around that. And then I quickly Googled Judiciary budget cuts Kenya, and this is what I find: statement by Chief Justice Maraga on judiciary budget cuts, November 2019. Judiciary in a 2.3 billion budget deficit, February 2020. Budget reduction to affect JTI activities, Judiciary of Kenya. That was August 2018. Then we have judiciary budget cut restored. We were even unable to pay salaries. This is November 2019. So fact-checking Chief Justice on judiciary funding, 2015 cuts, 2015, 2016 cuts, 2018, 2019 cuts. The executive has been on a warpath with the judiciary. I'll put that out there. We are not the first country. Same thing happened in South Africa. Zuma did not like the way the judiciary was treating him. He was on a warpath with the judiciary. And this is being affected through budget cuts. So you're talking about lack of capacity with an executive that is not sympathetic, with a parliament that has been slashing this budget. So where do we go from here?
And that's the big question, because one of the ways in which I was saying that the judiciary can be assisted and supported is by adequate budgetary allocation. If you don't give us judges to do this work, then what does it mean? But I remember there's one time when I did speak to a member of parliament, and I said, are you people not concerned that, and this was a friend of mine, are you not concerned that when you don't give us the budgetary allocation, that Wanjiru is suffering? And they said, we don't care. They don't care. And because Wanjiru...
They don't care that you're not getting the budgetary allocation, or they don't care that Wanjiru is suffering?
It was both ways.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, even for Wanjiru, does not understand that once we are not given the budgetary allocation, Wanjiru suffers. And you only get to realize that you suffer when you do come to the court system.
Are you saying our MPs, these ones that are cutting the budget, don't use the court system?
They do use the court system, but you see, for their vote, it is not pegged to how the courts operate. It is how do I operate as a member of parliament? What money have I given you to the CDF? I've constructed one or two classes. So even if it doesn't impact on this other side of how you're clearing the backlog, it won't impact on the votes.
Wanjiru doesn't understand.
Wanjiru doesn't understand.
So actually earlier Honorable Shabir was saying that citizens don't understand the budget process.
Did not.
And are therefore not able to decipher the interest around that. And this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Even as you're saying all these things, Honorable Kamau, I refer to the State of the Judiciary Address report a week ago.
Yes.
Right? And the information that's given therein is that there's an impressive makeup, or rather an eating into the backlog of some of these cases. That there's been a significant reduction because some work has actually been done, and it's impressive. 83% in a month, I think, is really, really, really good.
Yes.
What can be attributed to that success,
according
to this Soja?
I'll tell you. It's how much the judicial officers and the judges are putting in. Like I told you, if I'm supposed to only give about 10 decisions every month, if you look at the decisions I've given this month, it's probably about 30. But it means then you don't have a life. I don't go out, like you people will probably be going out. I don't go out to the discos. You can't go out for coffee. You can't do on Sundays, you rush from church. You go and start doing decisions.
Have I just heard you say that I go to discos?
For the Kenyan Mwananchi, Wanjiru.
One can only assume.
Exactly. So in as much as perhaps maybe I'd like to go to the disco, I'd like to go to the club,
right,
or I'd like to do that, or go to the gym.
Or sit and have a minute for real.
You do not have that.
Okay.
You don't even have time to go and do your hair. You understand? Because you are forever working. And it's as a result of that. But that's why you find that people have posted these results. Even the impost itself, we probably are at a deficit of about almost 5,000 people. But we are being able to post this kind of results.
So
what
what kind of numbers do we need?
There's a human cost.
We need
if you're saying
10,000.
right now that there are 70 judicial officers,
yes.
700.
We need about 10,000.
And we have?
We have about 5,000.
So we have a shortfall of 10,000.
You have a shortfall of 5,000 judicial officers, and this is judges,
judicial
magistrates,
and judiciary staff.
And judiciary staff.
It's across the board.
That is what is needed to actually get things running in normal lines.
Because for me, as a judge, you need support. You need to have researchers. You need a court assistant. You need many things. But you find in some places or some judges do not even have the researchers. So you have to do the work yourself. Or some researchers, you're sharing one between 5 people. Or the court assistant, some people have to wait for that court assistant to leave the other court to come into my court. So we start the cases at about 11 o'clock because we have to wait for the other court to finish between 9 and 10. So how can we be able to deliver? And yet we are delivering.
Can I ask this question, Justice? Is it that we cannot afford to finance the judiciary adequately, or is that we deliberately do not fund you adequately?
My view is that they do not appreciate what we do, and as a result of that, they tend to put the budget lower than any other place. But when you look at even the Parliament, what do they do on any particular day? They'll be out in the rallies. Fine, I'm not saying that they do not work. They're out in the rallies, they do all that kind of thing. If it's the office of the president, of course they have the ministries and all that, and they have a big staff. But the judiciary as well is an important arm. And until people realize that in Kenya, that it needs to work also for people to move, then they need to give adequate finances. And again, also the other thing is that the fact that we are also working and we are posting these impressive results. So everybody's like, so why do you want more people? And we've had the argument that the more judges you've had and the more magistrates you've had, the bigger the backlog is getting. But the reason for this is for the same reason that people are now coming to court more. So
even as you're doing this work, more people are coming and development begets development.
You get confidence.
It's like a vote of a vote of confidence on the judicial system. People seem to have increased their quotient of trust, and they're saying, I think we will be able to get justice if we actually go to court.
Exactly.
But see, this question has to be asked, Justice. I look at the time when Chief Justice Mutunga was the president of our Court of Appeal.
Yes.
And I look
Justice Mutunga?
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice?
Yes.
When he was the Chief Justice?
When he was the Chief Justice.
Okay, all right, yes.
And it was the Kibaki era. Now, he got what one would call very serious support. So a lot of the things that we saw happening in the judiciary was possible because they had the funding. Okay. Now, I'm looking at the times that we are now in. That was a rare situation where the executive and the judiciary seem to want to work hand in glove. But what we see now is something you see across the world, where even in a democratic system, the executive is constantly trying to control the judiciary, constantly. And it seems to be a constant battle. So in that regard, we are not in a unique position.
We are not, and I do agree.
You do agree?
Because when we go for the Commonwealth Judges and Magistrates Association,
I want us to take a break, Honourable Kamau. If we can take a break and then you come back and answer that question so that we do it justice properly. At 25 minutes past 8 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. Justice Thursday is where we are on today with Honourable Jacqueline Kamau, and we continue this conversation. We take a break also on Katie and Home. Be back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
This is something people need to understand. Your money, my money, equals our money. We cannot have your money is our money and my money is my money.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Afande umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
The weather with SpiceFM.
At 20 degrees, sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 27 and lows of 17. At 18, Nakuru is cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 15. 13 will be the low in a sunny Nyeri at 18, highs of 26. And Eldoret, sunny at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Mombasa continues with light rain in most parts at 30, highs of 33 and lows of 26. Malindi will be considerably warm today as well, going to highs of 32, lows of 27 currently with rain at 28. In Kisumu, it's raining as well at 22, highs of 30 and lows of 20, while we do have mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 16. We're looking at sunny conditions at 22 in Kampala, highs of 30 and lows of 19, while in Dar es Salaam it's partly sunny at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Johannesburg, light rain at 13, highs of 18 and lows of 11, while we're looking at rain now in Lagos at 25, highs of 30 and 33 and lows of 25. Light rain as well in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 22.
Famous, the secrets we keep, live La Liga action. Offer Showmax Black Friday special imeingia. Lipa for 1 month and get a second month sare. Yani 2 whole months of the biggest shows in Kenya, na English Premier League futa and lots more. Zote kwa one low price only on Showmax. Offer inachomoka soon, so sign up chap at showmax.com. Famous, the secrets we keep, live La Liga action. Offer Showmax Black Friday special imeingia.
We are still in traffic hour this morning in Mombasa Road, actually taking a hit around the Maradaima. That's outbound, a little bit inbound as well. Nothing too crazy at the moment. Bumper to bumper traffic in some parts. That whole Outer Ring North Airport Road, then feeding off to Outer Ring, also taking on some traffic this morning. Nothing too crazy, so you can actually handle this one. Uru Highway was taking a harder hit earlier, and that seems to be easing off as you get towards the roundabout. So that's where things are going to slow down considerably. Langata Road also getting to the T-Mall roundabouts, and then Bagathi Way heading out all the way through and through. Very slow bumper to bumper traffic on Bagathi Way. So if you thought you were going to use Bagathi Way to escape, you might want to turn around. Gong Road also, that piles up as you get towards the community area, and then onto Bishops Road and down into the city, joining with Valley Road, that's clogged up, and then getting onto Kenyatta Avenue. Coming out of Ngara off the Thika Superhighway, that looks a lot better now, but traffic going all the way towards Survey still continues as it does on Kiambu Road. Traffic hour is where we are. Let's try to get out of it without too much of a scratch. Let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods. If it gets sticky, talk to us on SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Let's text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
9 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Tuned into Justice Thursdays today with the Honourable Justice Jacqueline Kamau, as we're looking at issues of support for justices, judges and magistrates and judicial officers in supporting and reducing the case backlog. So as we went on the break, Siti had that question for you. Perhaps he needs to refresh that question, right?
What seems to be the saga and the apparent tiff that exists between the executive and the judiciary, I was saying is, it's a worldwide phenomenon, not unique to Kenya. That's really what I was saying. And I wanted your input on that.
Exactly. And I do agree with you. A reason being is that even when we go for the Commonwealth Magistrates and Judges Association conferences, where all the judges in the Commonwealth meet, it's an issue which cuts across, it's a problem that cuts across all the countries. Because the executive and the judiciary are always fighting. Parliament also makes the laws. The other one is supposed to be enforcing the laws, and we interpret. So, and if our job is to interpret, people might not necessarily be happy about why we're interpreting the laws in a particular way. But that's our job. But that's our job. So you may like it. There's always a winner and a loser in any dispute. So, and I think that is where the problem is. So it's not unique to Kenyans only.
Can I add?
Yes, no, Wanjiru, go ahead.
Okay. We are under a fiscal consolidation program. Kenya is in a debt crisis. The IMF has come in and they are consolidating the budget, rationalizing the budget, including salary. They froze salary increments, but really they're talking about culling the wage bill, which is too high. Has the judiciary been affected in any way by this? Because we know, for instance, public universities have been affected. There are other ministries, public institutions that have directives from government around the payroll. Has this come in any way to the judiciary?
What I know is that the last time when I heard, but I don't know whether it has changed, was that we were also going to be affected. So that the salary reviews that we were expecting were not going to be automatic. Because now everybody has to suffer, what they call suffering together. That's what I'd had. But I know even currently, there's also negotiations with the SRC, which normally sets our salaries on how some of these salaries can be reviewed. That I remember. But I think if it's an issue that affects the whole state, the whole government, then I believe then you might be affected by way of not getting new employees. Because if you cannot get new employees, then there's a problem. But remember, even as you talk about that bloated wage bill, which has got a bloated wage bill, the county governments, and I know you're a fan of county governments, Wanjiru, and I know you are a champion of them, and I don't think you'd like it touched. But I think that is where most of the budgetary wages are going, as far as I'm concerned. But it's working well, and it's working for the common mwananchi on the ground. So we also cannot do away with it. So somehow we need to re-strategize and revamp our economy so that we are able to sustain all these things. And because it's growing. So you can't grow and expect to remain at the same level as far as fiscal management is concerned.
What should we be aspiring to?
What should the economy needs to grow. It needs to be spurred. Of course, especially now after the COVID-19 pandemic, the economists and of course the executive now needs to tell us how do we get the economy moving, because it needs to sustain itself. The more you sustain the economy, the bigger it grows. So, and as it grows, you need people to work. If you don't have enough people then to work, then those processes that you want improved will not even be improved, all the services that you want to give. But before we move on, because there's something that I also wanted to mention about the issue of the fight between the executive and the judiciary. I agree. And I am a proponent that in as much as the three arms of government are independent, they are also interdependent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so whatever you do, you need to understand that it impacts on the other arm, either negatively or positively. So at all given times, even when you do decisions, you also have to have that in mind. If I do the decisions as well, I must also have in mind even about the insurance industry, for example.
Do you feel then, Justice Kamal, that there is no consideration, or there is little consideration of the judiciary by the other arms of government?
They don't value it with the importance that it carries. It's a very important arm. But because, remember, we are not warriors of the words like you people. Or the social media warriors, keyboard warriors. We are not that. So you will never find a judge responding.
Getting involved in that.
Getting involved in issues. But if a politician, you say something negative to a politician, they will respond. If you say something negative to the executive, they will respond. But what do? We are quiet. So when we keep quiet, then people think that we are the weaker arm.
No, you wait for the day we come to your court.
Precisely. That's what I wanted to say. We speak with the pen. That is what is our weapon. Yes.
Yeah, so Justice Kamau, as you say that, it's something that I was thinking about. In other jurisdictions, and also in Kenya, okay, under democracy, you're talking about lobbying. Even in the previous session, we were being told by Honorable Shakil again that we need to lobby to ensure that citizens' interests are taken into account. In other words, citizens need to be heard. What tactics can the judiciary employ to lobby rather than sit and wait to be heard and understood, because it's not going to happen? In fact, when Justice Maraga spoke back, it was looked at as...
It was groundbreaking.
Yes, it wasn't looked at favorably because we are not used to the judicial officers fighting back, and he fought back. But more to the point, how are you going to lobby for that space? Because there is no indication that the government coming in will be magnanimous enough to comply with the constitutional principles. They are looking at their own interests.
Well, we don't know the government that's coming in yet.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one thing we must understand is that we have a very good office, a good officer in the CRJ. The office of the CRJ is the one that normally goes to answer the questions, and all departments have what are known as work plans so that they're able to go and say what are their budgetary allocations. So I know she's been doing a great job. And for that, as you can see, even sometimes they have been slashing the budgetary allocations. Then at points, they come up because they lobby. They lobby quite a bit. And that's Anna Madi, the CRJ. But we must also understand that we also need collaborative partners, strategic partners. That's what I feel. People who will support us. And say that either maybe the judiciary is being sat on. So please come up and assist us, because we are not able to go out there in the podium and speak. But for me, as a politician, president of the Kenya Magistrates and Association, we have gone out there and made statements and said, why are you cutting our budgetary allocations?
Right.
And it will, because it's my job to do that as taking care of the welfare. But other people, when it's done, it might look off. And that's why perhaps maybe the last time everyone was like, what happened?
What happened and why? Yeah. Okay, so there's something that has come up, and it's almost become a slogan of everybody who wants to say something, whether that would be attacking the executive or otherwise. That there is an ignorance, or that there's a direct ignoring of court orders that come about from judges, magistrates, and the like, that the executive, alongside others, ignore deliberately court orders, whether it is something of national importance, whether it is something of legislative importance, that there is an ignorance of such. What do you feel about that, coming from the place of those who make these orders?
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, then you create a very dangerous precedent. Because what it means then, that if I give you an order for somebody not to knock down your wall, or maybe your child is being taken out of jurisdiction of the country, somebody will ignore it and say, I don't care, and move on. So you're creating and quoting anarchy. That is the number one thing. So if you do not like the order that I've given or issued, we have processes right from the magistracy. If the order is given in the magistracy, come to the High Court. From the High Court, come to the Court of Appeal. From the Court of Appeal, maybe if there's constitutional matters, go to the Supreme Court. It's hierarchical. So it's very, very dangerous. But you see, my job as a judge or a judicial officer is just to give the orders. Now, what you do with it is now really up to you.
Is that for everybody across board? If a citizen, Wanjiru, walks into court and an order is given on then what she's supposed to do later, and she ignores it, we can see very clearly the consequences that would happen. But it would seem as though there's a special place for other people who are higher ups, the executive, people who've been appointed by the executive, who don't obey these orders and nothing happens. These orders are a suggestion to them.
That's impunity.
Right? But then we don't see anything. Impunity. We don't see anything happening thereafter. It's a suggestion, it's made, and other things
Remember
happen.
What we do.
Somebody else would ignore it, And we can see the consequences in terms of what they would be.
Exactly. But let me say and reiterate this, that once I give a court order, whether it's in respect of Wanjiru or whoever, that order, once it's given, it is to be executed by somebody else. If it's maybe for maintenance and maybe somebody has not paid, you'll probably go and attach this, so it's taken through an execution process. I become functus officio once I declare my
discharged,
position.
yes.
I've discharged it.
Okay.
So it is up to the rest of the parties now to deal with it. So when we put a lot of burden on the judiciary and saying that your decisions are not being obeyed and you want me to do something about it, it becomes a problem because everything is very departmentalized. So I do this, the next thing somebody else does. But of course, we're not very happy about it. And for me, if you come before my court and you have not obeyed my orders, I'll really put you in.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
When you say give instruction that somebody should be arrested, the understanding is that that order is supposed to be obeyed, isn't it?
That's correct.
But since you aren't the arresting officer, you're hoping that the complementing agency that is supposed to perform this process of arrest complies, isn't it?
Precisely.
Not hoping, expecting.
No. There's hoping.
There must be
hope. There's a legitimate expectation.
Yes.
There's a legitimate expectation.
Yes. But you see why I'm calling it hope?
Because
we have seen it not happening. Because if indeed the law was being followed, Justice Kamau issues an order. As sure as the sun is shining right now, there'll be a police officer who will come, or whoever it is, coming to execute that order. And what Ndu is raising is that it appears that there is a lack of impartiality on the issue. But you know what aggravates it, Justice, is the conversation that has been in the conversation space for some time about judges and those in the judiciary system ganging up when it's one of their own who has some issue pointed at them. They gang up around the person and suddenly that matter gets completely obfuscated. You really do not know which way to turn, where to go, what to ask, what to see.
Let me say this, and thank you for that very important question, that there is no profession that probably will not stand out for its own. Even the editors and you journalists. Anytime when there's something, there's the guild, editors guild, I think that's what it's called.
Indeed, yes.
And you will always be saying that you cannot do this to one of us. Now, remember when the judiciary comes in as the court, it does not come to protect its own. What it does, it tries to create order. Now, any case that is brought before me, and you say that Ndu has done a particular thing, but you want me to give some stay orders for us to determine whether really that is a position. We can't first allow that action to take place and then for us to come up and say, in fact, you were not supposed to have been arrested. So you first have to stay and then listen. Now, where you find that maybe there people forget, and like he was saying that these matters are probably forgotten. Again, like we said, we have very few judges who are dealing with these cases. So the fact that a case has got prominence in the media, that you have decided it's your agenda, that this case must be prosecuted and it must be taken to court and it must move very fast-tracked. What happens to Wanjiru? So the case also finds itself in the judicial system, in the system.
With the 800,000
With the 800 other cases which are there. So people get very upset that how come this case has been forgotten. Let me tell you, even last week, if we ask Kenyans, what was the headline last week? We can't remember. Because in Kenya, everything happens every single day. There's a new headline.
Yeah, give it 5 minutes. There's another one coming
Precisely.
up. Right.
So, and that's the reason why you'll forget these cases. Just because we're in the media, that's why people forget, because there are other things that are also happening. But remember, even for the common wananchi, many other things are also being forgotten. But we are trying. Then again, once we take these cases to court, is that, like I said, we are not trying to protect people. It's just that the same way we also issue injunctions. Somebody wants to sell your property in the bank. The bank wants to sell your property. So what am I going to do? I'm going to stop the sale for me to listen to the dispute and hear, so did you not pay the money? You paid the money. You've sent all the notices.
Are there reasons why?
Then, in that case, then I discharge the injunction. That's what should happen. And that's exactly what happens in the other cases. It's only that I think they're getting caught up in in the system. Yes.
What happens then? Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Can you allow me to just revisit a small issue and then ask a question around the issue of the wage bill, bloated wage bill, and how do we address it? Economic growth. Of course, the economy has to grow. The fiscal consolidation program should be of interest to the judiciary because some of the proposals of the IMF from our analysis actually are a barrier to growth. And Kenya's growth actually has been on the decline, whether it's taxation, whether it's competitiveness on the regional market, because of some of those conditionalities. We are trying to frame that conversation with Parliament, with Treasury. We've sent our memos. We haven't yet gotten traction. So I think that's an issue of interest. On the wage bill again, a report conducted in 2016 by the Auditor General found that the problem with the wage bill, one, is not just the counties. It is the failure of the national government to rationalize itself to allow counties to grow. It is the failure to provide the needed money to lay off the pensionable, maybe the deadwood staff at the county level. It is the pensions. And actually, the national government budget has been growing at a time when functions reduced and were transferred. So the wage bill problem is not because of devolution. It's because of mismanagement, and the national government is equally culpable. And there was evidence that tracked this.
So then how does the judiciary then come into this here, Wanjiru?
I was simply just clarifying that it's not counties that are the wage bill push. It is really the national government that has failed to comply with, one, it's its own mismanagement. It's a historical issue around the wages and the pensions and benefits that are causing a lot of pressure, and that's across the board. So, yeah, I just I must protect devolution.
Of course. She's protecting the devolution.
Counties need staff to deliver services, and that's not the problem with the wage bill. But the question I wanted to ask is around land. Because land cases, of course, have been the bane of many families, and they've broken families, and there's been a lot of corruption around this. In your view, have we made progress in the, completion and fair adjudication of land cases or arbitration of land cases? Has there been progress? Has the corruption gone down? Have more cases been determined? What are maybe the barriers, if not?
Now, first of all, let me say this. Previously, they had very, very few judges in the Environment and Land Court. Now, with the new judges who were sworn in recently, so they now have good numbers. At least not very good numbers, but at least some numbers to assist them. Remember that land cases are very, very complicated. It's not like a traffic case where somebody says that you have overlapped and that kind of thing. You need to call a lot of evidence. The other thing is that when these people are stuck again in the court system, you find people die. The owner of the case dies. So you have to go for letters of administration. Then the person comes in. Then the case is not determined. Previously, that was happening. Then the person dies. And the cases keep on dragging. And because there's always going to be a person who is losing, they do not also want the cases to get finished. Remember, if I'm a defendant, I can also drag a case.
For sure.
Oh, my advocate is sick. The witness is unwell today. My witness has traveled out of the country. Those kind of excuses. But what I know, in some courts, like they now have a zero tolerance to adjournments.
Right.
On the first day the case is supposed to be heard, then it must be heard. To avoid all these things. But again, they get caught up in these problems because they're very complicated. They are probably looking for files in the registries and they're lost, especially like in the lands office. The kind of fraud that is perpetuated. Remember, Kenyans attach a lot of value to land. So you expect so many cases around that. So I think that court needs to be empowered and given more judges. So that I think they have about 40 or something is not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough for the whole country.
As you look at, as you continue to dispense your dispense your duties,
yes,
and you see or we hear of what we hear coming out. How does it affect the work that you do if 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 judges have a smear on their image in terms of activities that they may have carried out, whether it is corruption, whether it is bribery, whatever it is? How does that affect the the work that is being done?
It does affect, and I think that's what she was also just about to ask. It does affect the work of the judiciary a lot, because remember that from where we sit, we need to inspire confidence to the members of public that anytime when you come before me, you do not need to pay me any money to get justice. Justice is not to be paid to the highest bidder. But again, remember that there's also this issue of when clients lose or litigants lose, the issue is, oh, I know my case. Definitely that person must have been paid something. You know? And I'm not saying that corruption maybe is not there. I don't know. Because we, like we say, in fact, yesterday somebody was saying that a joke somebody says you're taking a girl to a date and they says, I'm hungry. You're dealing with a lawyer. And the lawyer says, you must give me evidence to show that you're hungry. You understand? And that's the dangers of dating a lawyer. But the same thing is here, that corruption is an issue when you just say blanket that we know that there's corruption.
In the judiciary.
In the judiciary. But you're not telling us exactly where it is. And I did listen to the interview the other day where it was said that almost everybody there is corrupt. But you do that, then you impact negatively into the whole institution. Because every time when I come there, I'm like, it's unlikely. And if you win a case, you'll be like, you cannot believe it. It now makes news that you actually won a case. We need to demystify the judiciary, let people come and understand that we are doing a good work. And there could be those problems, but let them be brought to court, let them be determined. Yes, let them be determined.
You see, you're right when you talk about processes that we need to understand. Because remember, the eyes, the lenses that we use to look at the judiciary are our lay lenses that are devoid of all the wherefores that the judiciary encompasses. And that is what we use as our yardstick. And that's what we use to look at the judiciary and say, oh, you mean this is what is actually happening? For instance, many of us have no idea how the Judicial Service Commission actually works. When there's an issue before them, what it is that they do and what they consider. Now, if these things were told the public, anytime there's an issue with the Judicial Service Commission, we would know, okay, now we have an idea what the process is. We know what is going to happen, all right? Every time there are thorny issues that come up and they involve the judiciary, that silence that the judiciary has is all good and well. But every arm of government has an individuals who speak on their behalf. Who speaks on the judiciary's behalf?
I think you've raised a very valid point because like all the other divisions, I know even like the police also have a spokesperson. So for us, the person who would ordinarily be speaking is the Chief Justice who speaks on behalf of the judiciary. But I think you raise an important point that perhaps maybe it's time that we started looking at how we can improve the image of the judiciary. And we have been doing this through Department of Public Communications. It's called DPAC. And so even sensitization like this coming out.
How's that working?
It's working by us coming to Justice Week here for people to understand exactly what we are doing, because we need to tell our story. People tell our story, but we are not being able to give it. We are not being given an opportunity. So I think this is a very important opportunity for me as a judiciary to come here and tell you this is what happens, and for you to hear from the birds, from
the horse's mouth.
From the horse's mouth,
literally.
Now, on the issue of the JSC and how it works, and like you're rightly saying that people do not understand the processes. One, this commission works on part-time basis because the commissioners who are there on part-time basis, and. Like we have agreed that they also do not have a spokesperson to tell us what these processes are. But remember that any accused person or any person who is any judicial officer or judge who is accused of something or of something is innocent until proven guilty. So because we are put in a very high moral standing as compared to the other arms of government, you first need to put these people in a situation whereby be very clear. That's why we are not having open sessions to to hear these cases, like in the courts, because you need to understand, is really this person, did they really do this? Because you need to process them back again to the same place of work that they are going to be in. So if so many things have been said in public, like the vetting, it really also negatively affected the judiciary. I remember many people were very pompous, and if you do this, I'm going to take you to the vetting board, and you're going to do, they become very courageous.
So it's clear that obviously you need someone to speak on behalf of this amount.
And I think that's very important.
And processes need to be sensitive
Honourable
to
Justice,
public image.
Yes.
Honourable Justice Kamal, thank you for joining us in the Situation Room this morning. It's been obviously clear that so many things need to happen, but that there's good work that's being done, and hopefully this work continues. Honourable Justice Jacqueline Kamal, High Court Judge and President of the Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association, thank you for joining us on Justice Thursday.
And thank you so much for having me. I look forward to coming back again to sensitize you about the judiciary and the good work that is being done there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We take a break on KTN Home. The conversation continues on SpiceFM. Will join us there when we come back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
around the country. 94.4 in Nairobi. There was a question there. 87.9 in Mombasa. 102.5 in Kisumu. 96.7 in Eldoret. 97.7 in Malindi. 96.0 in Nakuru and 90.9 in Nyeri. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. Justice Thursdays come to an end just then with Honourable Justice Jacqueline Kamal about issues on clearing the backlog. The conversation continues after the news at 9 o'clock, and we'll be looking at citizenship and what actually are your rights as a citizen of Kenya. A case right now in the media and how we can look at that in more detail. We'll ask you to call in on 0719 012 600 and we'll be joined by constitutional lawyer Waikwa Wanyoike, who will join us on the line then. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room, and right now it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around
This
the
is
world.
Newswire. I'm Dennis
94.4
Oseto. The Kenya National Examination Council has set November 30th as the deadline for all stakeholders to ensure that the data for candidates sitting examinations next year are confirmed and properly keyed into the system. NEC Chief Executive Officer David Njagere said that any amendments to the candidates' statements should be submitted to the council immediately. Among the information is the candidates' birth year, gender, while the names of Form 4 candidates are required based on the content of the KCPE certificate. In addition, KCPE candidates are required to ensure that their index numbers are properly indicated. According to the education calendar, the KCPE exam will take place between March 7th and 10th next year, while the KCSE exam will take place from March 11th and April 23rd. The Ministry of Health has defended its recent directive that unvaccinated people will be denied essential government services from next month. Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui directed that anyone not vaccinated will be denied essential government services, with restrictions in entertainment joints and other places in what has sparked outrage. National Task Force on Vaccine Deployment Chairperson Dr. Willie Sahwale now says that there is no two-way when it comes to the fight against the pandemic. Now, the Homa Bay County government has launched a program aimed at vaccinating more locals in various health centers across the country. The county's health CEC, Richard Muga, said they had decided to take the vaccine close to the local settlements to enable them to access the vaccine at no extra cost. He said they have 10,000 doses of AstraZeneca, 2,000 doses of Moderna vaccine and 750 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. To date, 66,000 people have been vaccinated in the county, with 20,322 among them having completed the vaccine after receiving the second dose. These as the government received 9,700 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The vaccines were donated by the Mastercard Foundation. Dr. Willie Sahwale is the chairman of the Vaccination Task Force.
This is a donation from the Mastercard Foundation through the AVAT mechanism of the African Union, who have given us graciously this donation. As you know, the government of Kenya is also procuring 13 million doses through the AVAT mechanism, and indeed, in early December, we are expecting another 1.6 million doses of Johnson & Johnson.
Now, the use of 40 speed governors in public service vehicles have contributed greatly to the increase in road accidents. Coalition for Road Safety Coalition Chairperson John Carrier said many PSVs use 40 speed governors. Speaking during a meeting that brought together various stakeholders in the transport sector such as traffic officers and NTSA officers, Carrier blamed traders licensed by the government to sell the gadgets for selling and installing trackers instead of speed governors, hence contributing to accidents. He said 40% of accidents were due to speeding. These as statistics show that the death toll from road accidents has risen to 4,330 this year compared to 3,300 last year. The National Assembly Speaker Justin Muthui has urged speakers and presiding officers across Africa to insist on free, fair and credible elections in the upcoming electoral processes in several countries across the continent, including Kenya. It said that speakers and presiding officers should ensure peaceful transitions, noting that future generations will remember them for these democratic principles. Speaker Muthui made the remarks at the conference of the Commonwealth Speakers and Presiding Officers in Africa region held in Kigali, Rwanda. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is reported to have joined the front line where government forces are battling rebels from the Tigray region, prompting US-led international calls for a diplomatic solution and immediate ceasefire to the conflict. The fighting in the north of Africa's second most populous country has killed thousands of people and forced hundreds of thousands into famine-like conditions. Foreign governments have told their citizens to leave amid the escalating war and fears the Tigrayan rebels could march to the capital, Addis Ababa. Abiy, winner of the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, is now leading the counter-offensive and has been giving leadership from the battlefield as of Wednesday. This as retired marathon record holder Haile Gebrselassie said he was going to join the army in fighting against the Tigrayan forces marching towards the capital Addis Ababa. Internationally, and the UK and France will keep all options on the table as they try to stop migrants from crossing the channel. The UK Prime Minister and French President said trafficking gangs are risking lives after 27 people died on Wednesday in the worst recorded migrant tragedy in the channel. 4 people have been arrested in connection with the fatal crossing. 5 women and a girl were among the dead, according to France Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin, adding that 2 people were rescued and 1 was missing. It was earlier reported that 1 had died, but the total was revised down overnight into Thursday. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Newswire stories making headlines in the world of the news higher. So
Okay, what are we looking at here? We're still in traffic hour this morning. Quite a lot of it in different parts of the city. Bagadi Way having taken a major hit today, and we're not sure what's causing that. But then we have a spillover from Langata Road and other parts of the city as well. So there's in and outbound traffic on Bagadi Way today. Uhuru Highway also. At every roundabout that you see on Uhuru Highway, you're going to see some of that traffic. The construction on the expressway is also contributing quite significantly to this. Kamkunji at the roundabout heading into the city on Haile Selassie Avenue, that's taking some as well. Jogo Road still continues. That started off very early this morning, and traffic still continues there. Thika Superhighway is doing this dance with traffic not, traffic in. It's there, it's not there. It must be that juju that Wanjiru talked about earlier, but we'll just wait and see. It still is a thing, even after 9 o'clock. Let's see in half an hour what it looks like. But it's ebbing and flowing in some parts of the city. Hopefully it's not too painful for everybody who's on the roads this morning. We'll take a look, see. Help us out here as well, folks. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
At 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, this is the last hour of The Situation Room this morning. Continuing with our conversations now, and not to forget, we're asking you to be part of this conversation at this point. Before we get into things, CT, the proverb.
Asiyejua utu si mtu. He who does not know how to be humane is not human.
I agree.
Beautiful proverb.
I agree 100%. I like it.
A-star.
Wanjiru has agreed.
A-star.
So therefore.
A-star. You know, these proverbs can go either way.
Okay.
There's a continuum of these proverbs. Yes. Leo tuko pale. A-star.
You know, most times I read a proverb and Wanjiru says, "Ay, City, did you make that one up?" And I'm thinking, surely.
like Aesop's fables. You are Aesop.
Aesop. Aesop.
The sage himself.
Could you please refer to yourself by your legitimate name? And I'm thinking, Wanjiru, where did you? I mean, surely.
Just come clean. Stop testing half-baked.
All right, so this is Kenya's biggest conversation. We continue with that conversation today, or actually right now. And we will be having a conversation on citizenship and the rights that Kenyans have as citizens of this country. What you can or cannot do, what you are privy or not privy to, what the Constitution allows you to do or not do, to have or not have. And I think this conversation has ballooned over the recent months, recent weeks and recent days, as concerns a gentleman who can or cannot come back into the country for certain things, whose citizenship then is being questioned about to whom he belongs based on where he was born or whose passport he then took. Okay. Can get quite messy, right? But joining us to have this conversation this morning is constitutional lawyer Waikwa Wanyoike. He's with us today. Good morning, Waikwa.
Good morning, Stu, and good morning to CT and Wanjiru.
Good morning.
Great to see you, Waikwa, as always.
Karibu sana, Waikwa. So just giving that intro as we delve into this conversation, it's been something, and it has taken, really the attention of quite a number of people. And we could, in my opinion, get sidetracked from what the real conversation ought to be about when it then comes to citizenship. But if we just give, an intro to this, and I think it's a little bit confusing for people, whether Miguna is Kenyan, whether he's Canadian. Now, an order has been given by court to allow this gentleman back into the country for whatever reason, that should he have the right documentation to travel, then he can come in. The order goes as far as to say, then let him have that documentation that is needed for him to travel in. But I think that these are details which then cloud the real conversation that we ought to be having about Kenya, the real conversation about constitutionalism, about citizenship, and what it actually then does mean for every other Kenyan who is part of this conversation, who is looking from the outside into this conversation and saying, okay, so then if I am ever in a pickle as concerns my citizenship or as concerns the rights that I do or do not have, what does that then portend for me? So, Michael, as we get into it, on the face of all of this, what do you see as potential stickler points in this whole conversation?
Again, thank you, too. I think it's important to start with the first principles. And for me, the first principles is, what does citizenship mean? And what is the implication of one saying, I'm a citizen of a country? To start, citizenship is not something even given by the Constitution. Especially citizenship by birth. Citizenship by birth is something that inheres in you on the basis of you being a human being. You may debate that when it comes to citizenship by registration and whether somebody has decided to be a citizen of one country or another, even though the issue about deciding is also another issue layered into citizenship. So that's the first thing. And so even the Constitution itself, in the Kenyan, and I'm talking about Kenyan 2010 Constitution, it's not that it gives citizenship by birth. It just articulates what citizenship by birth is. Remember, the Constitution says that there are certain rights that are actually that we have as Kenyans and as human beings on the basis of us being human, not just because we are located in Kenya or whatever other place we may be. So that is important to note. The second thing is the history about Kenya citizenship, and especially when you talk about citizenship by birth in the Kenyan Constitution. What you note is that the Constitution actually talks about two types of citizenship. The first one is citizenship by birth. The second one is citizenship by registration. When it comes to citizenship by birth, it says that you're citizen by birth if at the time when you were born, your father or your mother was a Kenyan citizen. And so it's not being born in Kenya that makes you citizen. It's your parentage that makes you citizen. A second point that is extremely important when it comes to citizenship by birth and goes to the question about dual citizenship, because this is where the contention, especially in relation to Miguna, comes in. When you go to Article 16, which is the article on dual citizenship, it says that a Kenyan by birth does not lose their citizenship because they acquired citizenship of another country.
Okay.
And so what the Constitution is trying to say is that it doesn't matter whether you have multiple citizenship, because citizenship by birth is so sacred, you can never lose it. So for me, those are basic principles, even before we get to the case of Miguna.
Waikwa, maybe you can remind us, what are the facts before we get into, there's a lot of politics. What happened around this Miguna case to bring us here?
So the facts actually goes way back to 1980s, the relevant facts. This is when Miguna was a student at the University of Nairobi, and in 1987, he applies to, he's part of the student leadership at the University of Nairobi. He applies to go to Cuba, and then the government actually refuses to give him a passport to travel to Cuba. He wasn't just alone, other students were also traveling, other student leaders. And so after that, because of his student activism, together with other students, they were targeted, they were arrested, they were tortured, and finally he had to flee the country through Tanzania. And United Nations recognized him as a refugee, and that's how he ended up in Canada. Fast forward, around 2007, Miguna comes back to the country. This is not the first time he's coming back to the country. After being in exile, he had been visiting the country severally. And in 2007, he comes to the country and he becomes the advisor, the legal advisor, the constitutional and legal advisor to the Prime Minister. He later obviously falls out with the Prime Minister, but in 2007, he actually tries out for membership or for Member of Parliament for Nyando. So, and he's cleared to run in the primaries, but doesn't get into the actual general election, becomes the Prime Minister's advisor. And then we fast forward to 2017. Miguna is a candidate for governorship in Nairobi. He's cleared like any other candidate because he's a Kenyan. And then in 2018, he swears in the Prime Minister, and that's where his little trouble on citizenship starts, when he's abducted from his home, I think on February 2nd. He's held incommunicado. Some of us go looking for him, a number of lawyers, a number of human rights organizations. We find him in Githunguri, but then the police again abduct him and take him to a known location. And finally, he services in Kajiado Law Court. But by that time, the court, the High Court, has already given orders that he be produced in High Court in Nairobi. Of course, the police refused to comply, and on the 6th, they designate him as a prohibited immigrant on the guise that he's no longer a citizen because they claim that he's a Canadian citizen, and they force him out of the country contrary to court orders. So that is how the whole
background to all of this.
Yeah.
So Waikwa, let's just look at, because again, like I say, there are many political tinges to all of this, and that's clear as day to anybody who's listening or who has seen how things have played out. But a technical question here: even if then you're granted refugee status for whatever reason, then it doesn't matter when it was, do you then relinquish your citizenship of said country if you become a refugee of another state?
Very important question, too. And I want to take you back because it's good to contextualize this with Miguna. Because Miguna actually was accepted as a refugee, and it's on that basis, as Justice Chacha Mwita found in December 2018, it's on that basis that he ended up getting a Canadian passport. And so your question is, does that mean that you lose citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
The government argument, just to put the government argument forward, is that has always been that Miguna lost his citizenship by virtue of getting a Canadian passport.
Mm-hmm.
And the government makes the case that under the 1963 and 1969 Constitution, dual citizenship was not permitted in Kenya.
Okay.
So when we argued Miguna's case, we advanced 4 reasons why the government was wrong. The first was to argue that citizenship by birth cannot be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you acquire citizenship of another country, because in the Kenyan context, it's not even given by law. So the law can't take what it doesn't
give.
It didn't give, the law didn't give citizenship. So how citizenship by birth, so how can it take it? The second point we made is that, in fact, under the 1963 and 1969 Constitution, dual citizenship was not prohibited for all classes of people. It was only for certain classes of people.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a long history about that, which has policy implications why certain classes were selected and prohibited to retain dual citizenship. And just very quickly, these are classes of citizens from other Commonwealth countries who, because they were citizens of Commonwealth, also because of the British Empire concept, also benefited they benefited to be Kenyan citizens before independence. And what Kenya was trying to do is to make them, as a policy choice, to make sure that they choose citizenship where they would want to remain. So that's the class that was prohibited. And in fact, because it's very easy for people to sensationalize it, this argument had been made way back in 2007, and the court had affirmed that was the position in law in a case of Mohammed Sirat. Mohammed Sirat was a gentleman who ran for Member of Parliament for Wajir, I believe Wajir East. He won. There was an election petition, and part of the grounds that were advanced on the election petition is that he was not a Kenyan citizen because he had acquired Australian citizenship. And Justice Kimaru, this is way back before anybody knew Miguna was going to happen. Justice Kimaru actually ruled that because Mohammed Sirat was born was a citizen by birth, Kenyan citizen by birth, he could never lose his citizenship, whether or not he acquired Australian citizenship. So we were just advancing that same argument in Miguna, and Justice Muita confirmed. The third argument that we made was that if you look at Section 87 and 89, which regulated citizenship under the old Constitution, even where they talked about loss of citizenship on the basis of acquisition of a secondary citizenship, it required that be voluntarily acquired.
Okay.
In the case of Miguna, then the question was, did Miguna voluntarily acquire Canadian citizenship?
Or was he forced?
By circumstance.
Okay.
Yeah, assuming. And the court found, based on the fact that, in fact, Kenya had exiled him, then Kenya couldn't come and say him who had volunteered to go to Canada so that he can become Canadian citizen, even assuming the government had proven that Miguna was a Canadian citizen. And I should pause here first and say, by the way, the government has never been able to prove that Miguna is a Canadian citizen. The government has been able to prove that Miguna had a Canadian passport. Those are two very different things.
Okay, so
Then the final-
Waiko, I've got to stop you there before you go to the final point. And so because there's just a jump at that last statement that you've made. So because you hold a passport for a certain country doesn't necessarily mean that you are a citizen of that country. That is clear as mud. How?
Because, again, even if you look at the Kenyan Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, it talks about documents of documents that citizens are entitled to, and separate that from the actual fact of citizenship, right? So, starting from the Kenyan scenario. So, one cannot argue that just because you have a Kenyan passport, that means you are Kenyan. And just to give you an example, there are many people who obtain Kenyan passports, maybe sometimes through corruption, but does that make them Kenyan? It doesn't. Because again, remember, we talked about citizenship inhering in you on the basis of your rights as human, because either you are born in Kenya or because of your parental connection. So that's the first point. Why passport does not necessarily equate to citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in law, remember too, it's law we are talking about here. And in law, anytime you make an allegation, you have to prove. The government makes an allegation that Miguna is a citizen of Canada. Miguna doesn't have to say, I'm not a citizen of Canada. But Miguna is entitled to the government proving that he's a citizen of Canada. That's exactly what happened in the Sirat situation. Because being a citizen of a country is also a question of facts. And the government has to bring credible facts to prove that. Kenyan government has never been able to do that.
And then on what basis do they deny him entry even if he were a citizen of Canada? You know, why this pull and push? What argument, what opportunities are they, what conditions are they setting for Miguna for him to come back into the country?
Again, that is partly why this is so petty. In fact, the way I would describe it is to say the government is being extremely petty. And by the way, it's important for your listeners to know that citizens have a right, a constitutional right to be petty. But public officials, in their public official capacity, don't have that right. And government doesn't have a right to be petty. And now, what the government is doing with Miguna's case is being petty. Let's first of all even put the citizenship issue aside and just deal with what do you need to enter Kenya, even whether you are Kenyan or not Kenyan.
A visa.
And we're a tourist hub, you know? Everyone comes to Kenya.
Yes, Wanjiru. And remember, Kenya, for I think almost every country, if not all countries, you can obtain a visa at the port of entry.
Sure.
Right? You don't have to apply for your visa from Singapore or from Kigali or wherever you are traveling from. No, you can apply your visa at the port of entry. And the moment the government actually provides for that, then and you're within the class of people who are entitled to that, then the government can discriminate you. So at this point, there would not, even assuming Miguna wasn't able to travel as a Kenyan, there is no reason why the government should be interfering with his journey before he gets
into the country. Can we take a break on that note, Waiko? Let's just take a look at weather and traffic. We'll come back with this conversation as we're getting to that point where then, okay, so moving forward, what happens and what should happen if we're saying following the law and abiding by it, then what should be the next course of action? I know CT has a question. It's burning. SpiceFM KE is where we are live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The conversation continues with constitutional lawyer Waikwa Wanyoike, looking at citizenship and the rights of citizens in the country. Keep it here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawoko?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather
Sunny
with
conditions at 22
SpiceFM.
in Nairobi, highs of 27 and lows of 17. At 20, it's cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 15. Nyeri is sunny at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 13 and 17. And sunny in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Still continues to rain in Mombasa at 30, highs of 33 and lows of 26. Malindi also raining at 30, highs of 32 and lows of 27. We're looking at partly sunny conditions in Kisumu at 24. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 20. And in Kakamega, 25 and sunny, highs of 30 and lows of 16. Kampala is sunny at 22, highs of 30 and lows of 19. And we're looking at light rain in Dar es Salaam at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Johannesburg continues with that light rain at 13, highs of 18 and lows of 11. And in Lagos, it's partly sunny at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 25. Kinshasa is wet this morning at 23, highs of 30 today. Out in Beijing, going into early evening, it's 12 degrees and sunny, highs of just that and lows of -2. Clear conditions at 2 in Paris, highs of 6. And it's clear at 5 in London, highs of 7 and lows of 5. And around things out in New York, coming into early Thursday morning, it's 6 degrees and clear. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 12.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of? Has anybody been
Listen, I will not listen.
A bit of advice, because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Ticking out of traffic hour in a short while, but there's still some of it on different parts of the roads this morning. In Maradime on Mombasa Road, that area in and outbound still continues with traffic this morning, and we're also looking at it quite heavy on Bagadi Way. That started earlier as well. Langata Road also feeding off from other parts of the city. Industrial area still continues with some traffic today, as does Jogo Road. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, much better today, just getting that nook at the Muthui Square, and then also joining from Kiambu Road. Out into the city, however, not too bad. Limuru Nakuru Road has greatly reduced, so traffic hour ends soon. But through the morning, talk to us on what it looks like. Probably traffic won't pick up till evening time, but not too bad to hear from you. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, we're back at 24 minutes to 10 o'clock.
94.4 Spice
Having a
FM.
conversation this morning in the Situation Room in Okoh, CT Muga. Wanjiru Gikonyo, and also joined online by constitutional lawyer Wanjiru. And we're looking at citizenship and the rights of citizens in the country, taking special focus rather on the Miguna case. Waiko, as we're going to that break, finishing up on why the government is being petty, I know CT also had a question that he wanted to pose to you, as you do.
Miguna's case isn't really new. There was a gentleman by the name of Sheikh Balala who was the head of the Islamic Party of Kenya. Now, he not only lost his citizenship, but he was stranded in Germany for 4 years and his passport was withdrawn because the government decided he was Yemeni. However, in 2018, a case was lodged in the High Court and Justice Ogola awarded him 6 million shillings because the government had actually, violated his citizenship. That case, straightforward, court, same issue that you're suggesting. But there's one which has confused me. There is a Kenyan by the name of Mwende Mwinzi. She had been appointed by President Uhuru to be our ambassador to South Korea.
Right.
The usual vetting process went to Parliament, and Parliament said, you have to renounce one citizenship before you can actually take up this job. Now, what complicated matters further? Well, it's not as though she goes and knocks at the door of South Korea and says, I'm here. No, credentials are sent in advance, and South Korea had said, yeah, it's okay, we accept.
Come.
How does this work out? The president has appointed this person, there's the issue of this dual citizenship, and there is a problem here. I want your input on this one. Because that one confused me.
So, Sweetie, it's interesting you talk about the case of Sheikh Balala. The interesting coincidence is that Balala was stuck in Germany and Miguna now is stuck in Germany. So there seems to be a common denominator.
Yeah.
But I think the fundamental point you've made is about what Justice Ogola did in 2018 in finding that the government had violated Sheikh Balala's constitutional rights and even awarded him damages for that. And remember, the court was actually looking mostly at the former constitution. And we know when dealing with Sheikh Balala's case, because that happened under the former constitution, even though there may have been obviously continuing violations. More importantly, under the 2010 constitution, which is when all this is playing out in Miguna's case, 2010 constitution is actually quite different, fundamentally different from the 1969 constitution. On citizenship, other than being transformative, it's actually restorative. So I talked about dual citizenship and why just because you became a dual citizen doesn't mean that you lost your citizenship. In fact, what 2010 constitution does is that even where there is doubt that you may have lost your citizenship because of the way the law was worded and maybe the law was convoluted in the past or was vague, and so an officer in good faith could actually interpret the former law as meaning that if you became a dual citizen, then you lost your citizenship. What the 2010 Constitution does is to be restorative, and that is why it uses the language of citizen by birth does not lose, right? Citizenship by acquiring a citizenship of another country. There is also another point that not many people talk about, which is also very restorative and similar to dual citizenship. It's one to do with marriage. It says you don't lose citizenship. A citizen by birth, again, never loses their citizenship on account of marriage or dissolution of marriage. Because that is important when you think about it historically, but also from the perspective of discrimination. Because the people who are more likely to lose citizenship on account of marriage are women. And the people who are likely to have been said to have lost their citizenship by birth are women. So there is that restorative aspect to it. And so what I once tried to be a teacher and maybe failed miserably. But I was told when you are a teacher, you say you have 4 points, you make the 4 points. I had initially said the reasons that we had advanced before Justice Muita, in which he agreed with, and one of them was that in any event, it doesn't matter whether or not the law is interpreted as not having permitted citizenship in the past, because what the 2010 Constitution did, and this is the 4th point, was to make or was to be restorative, and in fact applies retroactively. And unlike your regular statute, constitutions can very quickly and easily apply retroactively, and that also was a benefit for Balala. And bringing now the Mwende Mwizi case, it shows you why this is all about impunity and abuse of power. Because, in fact, Miguna is in a better place when it comes to claiming rights to citizenship than Mwende Mwizi.
Why is that?
Even though, because when you think about it, Miguna has consistently had evidence confirmed by government that he's a citizen for a very long time. Whether it's in terms of how he became citizen, how he left the country, the document of identity, the passport which he got in 2007, his ID which he's had for a very long time, which was again renewed in 2012 by the government, the fact that government agencies cleared him to run for office, which is only a right available to citizens. You know, there is that very lengthy evidence. I'm not sure Mwende Mwizi it would have been able to show that sort of track record of evidence. But it doesn't matter, because I'm not trying to say that Mwende Mwizi's citizenship is lesser than Miguna's. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is the impunity that this government shows, that if you present it with the same facts, but 2 different people, it says this is the law that applies to you, but for this other person, this is the law that will apply to them.
It's entirely personal.
Right. So why
entirely personal?
You know, fast forward to what's happening currently, and then even after the orders that have been given by court to then allow him back into the country. And then we see these games back and forth being played on, technicalities. If so, even if they are technicalities, what reason then would government have to be petty?
The reason why, I don't know the reason why the government is being petty, other than that you have people who are relatively insecure, people in leadership who are relatively insecure, whether that is the political leadership going all the way to the president, because this is the kind of thing that the president can just direct his officials. Remember, This is a matter of national government. The president is the head of national government. This is a matter purely being dealt by the executive. So the buck actually stops with the president. So if the president himself was acting within the law, then he could direct his officials to respect the law and do what the court has done without in any way overstepping. But there is also the second layer of officials, which is the Matiangis, the Kibichos, the Kihalangwas, who, and then a third layer of officials, now the embassy officials, and the immigration directors and such. And I was watching Miguna's video at the Berlin embassy, and then yesterday the videos released by LSK President Nelson Hart. And at some point, I'm not sure whether to sympathize with those officials or just to be angry as a citizen in a Kenya, because the court orders are very clear. As a public official, you've taken an oath to respect the law, but it's very clear that even for very senior officials, you just sit there as an automaton and wait for somebody else to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So why did you go to school? Why are you a professional in the first place? They wouldn't want even to read the orders. They just don't want to know what is in there. They just wait for the phone call. At some point, actually, you have to sympathize with this, with these people, unfortunately. But whatever the case, the court orders are very clear. The court has said Miguna is a citizen by birth. The claim by the government that Miguna must apply to regain citizenship is not well-founded because Miguna never lost citizenship, and you don't apply to regain citizenship that you never lost. And it doesn't really matter, even assuming the court was wrong, because those orders have never been overturned, and there has been an attempt in the past. Then officials are required to respect those court orders. They can go to court and later and argue at the Court of Appeal or at the Supreme Court, but for now they have to respect those orders. And what the officials are doing, and especially the people like Muteshi, the smaller sort of middle-level public officials, is they're putting themselves in a position of jeopardy where they are taking orders, unthinkingly taking orders, and yet the consequences will end up being personal, because when you violate a court order, contempt is to you. It's not to the people who are making phone calls.
Right.
No, I was just going to say this mirrors the conversation we were having yesterday, where we've seen the AG step in to challenge the orders given by the court on Kibicho's actions. And we are seeing this recurring pattern of interference
Kinoti.
Kinoti's court orders, really trying to, interfering with the due process of public institutions. And this is a leadership style. And yesterday when I went there and said, this is a characteristic of Jubilee, it reflects the highest authority, because when you interfere with institutions, really that's when, because what we're talking about is you've entered the realm of incompetence, you've also entered the realm of abuse of power. And this mirrors very much we are back to the Moi days. We are under our new constitutions, but we must remember constitutions, the law does not implement itself. It's implemented by people. And those people, unfortunately, instead of taking instruction from the constitution, are taking instruction from, the powers that appoint them.
Explain this to me, because I don't understand it, the incompetence.
Where
does it manifest itself?
Well, the incompetence is that this government is not able to execute the priorities that it has laid out. And as well as being incompetent, they are then also not able to follow, are not following the constitution. And it puts us in jeopardy. So you've, and again, I'll cite David D. He talked about a corrupt government, an incompetent government, and a government that is undemocratic, does not respect the rule of law.
Do you know what is interesting?
And this exemplifies that. This case actually exemplifies that.
If I just use a turn of phrase, they're actually competent.
In this case.
No.
In this particular case.
It really depends on what you want to do.
Yes, in the matters,
this particular case.
In the matters that they want to pursue, for instance, they competently lie to us continuously, okay? Because you always hear things which you know very well won't happen. They competently ignore court orders. You see it very. It's like the things when people seem to have a clear agenda, quite aside from what they say, because again, there's competency there. What they say is just what they say. Please don't expect that anything will come out of it. So, and there's consistency in it. They're not even conflicted.
Now, the point I was making...
You can more or less even predict that, this is what they're going to say, and this is what is going to happen.
So the point I was making, so that we don't get lost in the use of that one term, which applies to this government, and I hold it
Of course, you gotta throw
But
that
in this case, we are talking about abuse of power. We are talking about being under a new constitutional dispensation. We are talking about constitutions do not implement themselves. I'll say that it is old wine, old skin, new wine. Or is it old, the way
it's old wine skin and new wine don't mix.
So the new wine is the constitution. The old skin is KANU, reloaded.
Okay, over to you.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just want to make, I guess, 2 points that shouldn't be lost. Just on this, first of all, on this question about competency and all that. You see, competency is both institutional and individual. So when you hire somebody like under the 2010 Constitution, if you take a position, you're presumed to be competent.
Yes.
And you are expected to be competent. And in fact, you're vetted for competence. And that vetting is not community vetting. It's not whether your community is competent. It's you. Do you have the training? Do you have the experience? So when you have a director of immigration, for example, then the question is, what competency does he have to occupy that position? He needs to understand the law. He needs to understand how immigration works and all that. And in fact, when it comes to immigration, he should be the foremost authority. But the point I was trying to make earlier, and this is why at individual level, people are not showing competency, and obviously at the institutional level, they're not showing competency, is because they're not applying their skills, they're not applying their thinking. They're waiting for somebody else to think for them. And they're waiting for politicians to think for them.
Okay.
And we know, and I need to say this.
Yeah, we can't hear you very well on this one, Waika. Maybe if you can just adjust that sound really quickly. You seem to have lost your sound there.
I hope you can hear me now.
It might be the connection.
No, maybe the connection is a bit off, but maybe we can just sort that out as we continue that conversation. So now, CT, even as we work on that, CT, when we talk about now saying that there's a blatant disregard for these court orders, there's a blatant disregard for that, because at the end of the day, the man is not going to come into the country if the government of the day has decided that this is not what they want to happen.
You see, what Wanjiru is talking about is the aspiration we have and the hope that when somebody occupies a certain position, that they will carry out their functions in a certain way. And what
impartially.
And what I'm saying
fairly.
is, there is a mandate that the individuals have. And what we see as incompetence is them competently following the mandate that they've been given.
But no,
and it goes again, yes.
But no,
if somebody is obfuscating the law, that's what they're doing it deliberately. It's not as though.
It's not but Waikwa has challenged us because this is the notion we have of Kenyans. We are so conditioned to accept, these violations.
This
he has said
accepting Wanjiru. This is stating it as it is.
What I'm trying to say is Waikwa has given us a spin on that I really like. He's saying when you're employed to undertake to a public position. You're expected to implement the law, and your competence is based on your being able to implement the law as required. So that's I think the required bar. When you are recruited to the position,
that's something. It's aspirational.
When you're required to, it's not aspirational.
It is. The appointing authority has an agenda that is often very contrary to the very thing that we are saying.
Why do we allow our public officers to employ a lower standard than we hold to ourselves? CT, if you are in this position and you are behaving incompetently, maybe you're taking orders from wherever, you wouldn't last a week. You might not even last a day.
But if the
agenda...
why
do we allow public officers who we pay if
the agenda of the person in authority over you is for you to behave in that certain manner, it will now make sure that you toe that particular line.
But you're missing the point. I am the employer. I am the citizen. Sovereignty lies with me.
So you think?
No. The point I'm saying is, why do we allow our public officers to get off with it, and including defining very low expectations for them? So Waikwa has just, he's kind of just raised the bar for us to say, no, these guys are incompetent.
Waikwa, we'd like to get your final comment on this.
One more point. I would want one more point on personal competence. There is also something called professional pride. When you're a professional, the reason you're a professional is because there are certain things you can't do because they are beneath your professionalism. And so it's not just that these people are incompetent, it's clearly that they don't have professional pride. If they are willing just to take clearly illegal directions from people just because the persons may have political power, yet they are the technocrats, they are the professionals, but just because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Going forward and looking at how this case is unfolding.
I wanted to make
Yes.
I just wanted to make one last point that I think it's important to clarify. In terms of the orders of the court, what the court said is Miguna should obtain an emergency travel document. The reason the court asked that Miguna obtain an emergency travel document because that's the document he is required to present to the airline to be able to board the airline. When he gets to Kenya, the court said he should identify himself using his ID. Because if he has a Kenyan ID, which has been given by the Kenyan government, and the Kenyan government says that IDs are given to citizens, then that is sufficient proof. This whole idea about regaining citizenship or being able to prove citizenship for him to even travel to Kenya is just quite ridiculous. Because as long as Miguna can get to Kenya, whichever way he gets to Kenya, and people, by the way, travel with expired passports all the time. Government actually moves people using expired passports all the time. As long as he can get himself to Kenya, then the government has an obligation, once he identifies himself,
to let him in.
In fact, he doesn't have to identify himself with an ID or any document. The moment there is a public official who can say, I actually can vouch this is Miguna, and I know Miguna is from Kenya, that is sufficient for purposes of satisfying the law.
There will be interesting days ahead. Waikwa Wanyoike, constitutional lawyer, thank you for being part of that conversation with us today. Asante Sana. CT, in about 10 seconds, today's proverb.
Asiyejua utu sio mtu. One who does not know how to be humane is not human.
Thank you for keeping it the Situation Room this morning, Asante Sana. The conversations continue tomorrow. Keep it SpiceFM as more programming and music that you can definitely enjoy comes your way through the day. More music at until 11. Sugar and Spice comes in. And then thereafter, Spice Drive with Edward Quatch. And then the adults in the room taking you into 10 p.m. And then we'll be back for Friday Conversation in Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a good day. It is 10 a.m.
Sugar and spice and
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.